Kim, would you mind running through the housekeeping items?
Yeah, so Kim asked me actually to step in and do those announcements. I
Thank you,
can go ahead and get
Crystal.
started. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, commission members, liaisons, and members of the public to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission meeting. Thank you for joining us. We're using Zoom with the goal to foster a more inclusive environment and effective meeting. If you'd like to comment during the meeting, please type, I have a comment, or I have a question in the chat, and a message will be sent to the host. Alternatively, you can also use the raise hand feature. In efforts of transparency for all those joining this public meeting, whether by phone or Zoom, we request that you refrain from having side conversations on chat about the context of the meeting. Again, the chat feature is utilized simply as a tool for you to virtually indicate that you'd like to speak in order for the chair to facilitate the discussion. New going forward, all Legal Service Trust Fund Commission and committee meetings will be recorded and posted on the State Bar website. A friendly reminder that this is a video conference and to please be aware of your surroundings behind you. A few troubleshooting tips for those using Zoom on a computer. When on mute, holding down the space bar will temporarily unmute you. If you use your phone to dial into this meeting, please be sure your computer's microphone is on mute to avoid audio feedback issues. And then while joining, audio via computer is highly recommended. If an individual loses audio, you can call in separately using the Zoom conference number.
I'd like to welcome everybody. It's good to see you all, and thank you for joining us. I want to emphasize what Crystal was just talking about in terms of the awareness of your surroundings. There have been incidents for all of us, I suspect, on Zoom calls when people forget that they're on camera, and we'll be on camera for the next few hours, all recorded for posterity. And just so that everyone's aware of it, the background and your surroundings can be seen generally, unless you have one of the state of California, the beautiful blue backgrounds that you can see that are behind many of those who are on screen now. These could be made available to you at no additional cost. If you would like to have one, just look in your inbox, and Dawn will send you a link on how to do that so that you can have a background and avoid the potential embarrassment that Kim Savage always has when her dog prances through the background, or any of you have other things going on behind you that you're not aware of. So we do have that background available to anyone at no additional cost. I want you to know. I thought we would do something a little bit different starting this first meeting by using the roll call as a means of getting to know one another more than just a name. So if when your name is called and you signify that you're here, would you also add just a bit about yourself? And if you'd like, tell us how in just a few minutes or less you've survived the pandemic by reading a great book, or by watching a great TV series or movie, or playing games with your family or friends that has something that's helped you get through this last terrible period of the pandemic, so that we'll get a chance to know you a little bit better. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dawn, for the roll call.
Sure, I'll do roll call. Richard Reines.
All right, so I figured since I'll start, everyone will get a chance to get deep breath and what am I going to say? And I thought about it, and I actually read The Ragged Edge of Night recently. Oh, by the way, I'm a lawyer with a big firm called Thompson Coburn, and headquartered in St. Louis. But I've been doing this kind of work for many, many years. And I enjoy it more than anything. And this quote from Margaret Mead that I read, that maybe some of you have seen recently, struck home with me for this meeting. Margaret Mead was a great anthropologist, and she was asked by one of her students, what's the first sign of civilization in a culture? And the student expected to hear something about fishhooks, or about pottery, or grinding stones. And instead, Margaret Mead answered, the first sign of civilization and culture is a mended broken femur in a body, in an ancient remain, because what that tells you is that someone cared for the person with the broken femur. And the first sign of civilization is caring for others, which in my view, is what we're doing here directly in helping the many millions that we touch every year with the efforts that we make. And I want to thank you all in advance for the next year. Kim Savage and I will be working with you to try to advance the cause of the commission. With that, I've given you The Ragged Edge of Night by Olivia Hawker, a terrific read, a true story, and I'll turn it back to Dwan.
Kim Savage, and I believe she's joining us a little bit later. Christian Schreiber. Chris, are you on? I don't see him. Christina Vanarelli.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Christina Vanarelli. I'm a private practice attorney in Ventura, California, right on the Central Coast, the beautiful Central Coast. I would say to survive COVID, I've been focusing on my pet turtles. I added 2 box turtles to my backyard collection, and a couple months ago, I added a juvenile sulcata tortoise, who's about yay big right now, but he's going to get really big. He's so cute and they're so sweet. And we've also, for the past 2 years, have been saving, my husband and I, $60 each per week for a trip to the Galapagos, where we're leaving in about 2 weeks to see the enormous turtles there. So that's been keeping our happiness up and our motivation up. And it's nice to see everybody.
That sounds amazing, Christina. And I believe Chris just joined. Chris Schreiber. He's on mute. You know, we had a technical difficulties in that earlier meeting, and that people couldn't unmute themselves or show their video. If that's the case, could you try to Skype us or email me and let me know? Banashe Aglagi?
Yes, here. I just came back on. I was at that earlier meeting, so I missed if there's a task that Rich has given us to do. If you could restate it for me, please.
Just tell us what you do in your regular life, and then tell us how you've survived the pandemic. Have you read a great book, seen a good movie, played games with your family? What 1 or 2 things stand out?
That's great. So thank you for that. I am in private practice. I work with primarily startups who are mission driven. And how have I survived the pandemic? Part of it has been being trained and developed to take on corporate board seats. So that's part of what I've been doing. And we just purchased a place in Portugal. So we had an opportunity this year to fly there and get Plan B in place. And I guess the third would be to be spending time with all of you. And we've been having a lot of meetings, great work this last year. And I just want to, kudos to the staff and to this group of people for the work that we've all been able to engage in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like, nice.
Amina Saraf.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amin Al-Saraf, and I'm a litigator. I'm an attorney at a law firm in LA called Glazer Weil. And in addition to doing litigation, I also run our pro bono program. So sort of involved in a few things tangentially related to what we're doing in this commission as well. How have we survived the pandemic? Well, we have a 5-year-old at home, currently 5-year-old, and now a 7-month-old. So I guess I'll say there hasn't been a dull moment in the past 1.5 years or 2 years. Gosh, it's already out there. And we've been doing a lot of active activities and reading and things like that at home to keep everybody somewhat sane. So good to see you. It's good to see you all.
Jeff Ball. Jeff. Luis, Fightmaster.
I missed the introduction. I guess is it just a general topic of how we survived the pandemic? It sounded like somebody had said 1 or 2, 3. I don't know. Is that the general?
That is Luis.
Okay. So obviously I have survived it. The beginning was rough. We have two grandchildren that are very young and were a lot younger when it started. Right now they're 4 and 2.5. So 2 years ago, they were even younger, and they're obviously can't be vaccinated and those kinds of things. So we spent the first 6 weeks not seeing anybody. I mean, our family is probably the most important thing we maintained during the pandemic. So we had, our pod, so to speak, included, our kids and their partners and kids, grandkids. So that was good, because I have so many friends my age who just could not see their grandchildren because of their age and because of the age of the grandchildren. My work life hasn't changed much. I mean, I'm actually grateful for Zoom because I can work safely out of my house. I've always worked, since I retired from the court, I have been doing private judging and mediation, but I can do that at home now, and I don't need to travel, around the Bay Area and, spend gas money and all that stuff. It's just much more convenient. So I've actually enjoyed the ability to just work from home pretty much all the time. And then work has been different. I do family law only type cases. So it's been a lot of stuff going on with families in the pandemic, lots of domestic violence, lots of just, we're sick of each other because we're stuck with each other, and a lot more divorces and that kind of thing. I mean, that basically covers it, family and work. I mean, in my background, I worked for Legal Services Corporation many years ago, Vista volunteer. I was a family law facilitator at our court before I was a commissioner. So I've spent a lot of my career also, in pro bono legal services kinds of work. So that does it.
Thank you, Louise. Pamela Bennett.
Okay. So, surviving the pandemic by reading, by challenging what we consider doing interviews as a weakness. So I take a public speaking class. My day job is legal secretary for the city of Los Angeles. And I'm grateful for Zoom. I'm loving Diana's Christmas tree in the back. I'm almost there. But just the reading, learning new words, making myself move my brain and my body was great. I guess a survival technique. And even though I know I'm going to go to the church thing real quick, just I know a lot of things were kind of unsettled there, but I just found myself volunteering however possible, even during the pandemic. So just staying connected with my church. And the reading, I think the reading part really helped to kind of settle my brain and move my brain around. So I'm gonna say just the reading. Yeah, that was a key factor in learning new words. So my conversation kept changing, even though we were in a pandemic. My conversation just kept moving forward, and I was grateful for that. So.
Thank you, Pamela. Catherine Blakemore.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here today. I am a 40-year legal aid lawyer. That was my entire legal career in several different organizations. I actually retired in February 2020, so about 6 weeks, I think, before the lockdown started, maybe 4 weeks. It was a really interesting time to rethink how I wanted to spend my time. I'm continue on the Access to Justice Commission. I'm the vice chair. There were lots of opportunities for us to do some really interesting work during the pandemic. I've enjoyed meeting with all of you, and really thank you for all the kindness you've shown me as I've been onboarding and trying to sort out what this commission does and the way that it approaches its work. I think it's really a terrific collaborative group that respects a lot of diversity of opinions, and I appreciate that. I think Margaret Mead's quote fits right into this. Kindness is really what we all need, and this commission, I think, demonstrates that to each of the people in the organization. So thanks for all the leaders of that. So I homeschooled grandchildren during the pandemic. One was just starting kindergarten. The other one had been in a preschool program. So that was a fabulous experience, actually. And I'll just share a book. The book that I really enjoyed a lot during the pandemic is The Overstory. I think it's by Richard Powers. It's a Pulitzer Prize winner. It has a lot of impact, I think, in the current sort of discussion about climate change and our responsibility as, as individuals to address that. So I highly recommend that. And thanks for suggesting the intros, Rich. I think that was terrific.
Try The Golden Spruce as a good follow-up to that book.
Oh, okay.
Will
Thank you.
Bashelli? Oh, sorry, Will Bashelli?
Oh man, tough act to follow here. My name is William Boshelli, and my background is with computer work, website design, and development, or to my mom, I'm just tech support. That's how it usually goes. I am a non-attorney, and to survive the pandemic, it's been a lot of volunteer work. I was working with a group doing COVID response, and now I'm doing administrative work for them, which is way less fun, but still feel like part of the response. And that's nice. I haven't been able to read much because I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. She keeps me very, very busy with, I don't know if you guys know Bluey, but it is a winner. Man, it sneaks up on you, some of those episodes. So I'm a real fan of that, and can highly recommend it to all ages. And then I think I do get to listen to a podcast that I can highly recommend, 99% Invisible, with Roman Mars. It's great. It's about design, and I really love thinking about how the systems of the world kind of work and the interplay there. And it's beautifully crafted. So I love listening to that, and excited for the work of the commission. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Will. Erica Connolly?
Hi, everyone. I am a Deputy Attorney General at the California Attorney General's Office. I work in the corporate responsibility section. So we basically handle issues involving, securities fraud or unfair competition claims. And like a couple other people on this call, I have a 3.5-year-old. So I'm not sure survived the pandemic, but I have made it through the pandemic, discovering how the terrible twos transition into the teenager years. This morning being the latest example, my daughter spent, like 20 minutes screaming at me about why I couldn't take her to go get a pink backpack before school. So that's just like kind of what life is like in the Connolly household right now. Anyway, it's a lovely though. She's amazing. And I'm excited to be, continuing to volunteer on this commission. Thank you.
Corey Friedman? Corey? Jason Galkin? Eric Iskin?
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Iskin. I'm a former co-chair of this commission, along with Bonifay, who you've heard from. And Rich, I'm really impressed and inspired by the way you've gotten us off to a start here today. I think that was great. I'm a retired assistant general counsel at Southern California Edison Company and doing a bunch of stuff now. The reason I'm making a rare appearance in a tie today is because I just got off the bench serving as a judge pro tem in traffic court, which I do from time to time, and got to see firsthand the oppressive and how difficult the traffic fine regime can be for people, and hopefully can be of some help there. I've survived the pandemic by playing with my three-nager, that's what you called it, a three-nager grandchild, but I'm very thankful to give her back to her parents, and also survived the pandemic with good wine and some really nice hikes in Griffith Park.
Thanks, Eric. Diana Cruz?
Hello, everyone. I'm Diana Cruz. I'm an arbitrator and a mediator with Judicate West. And before that, I was a partner at Morrison Forrester in the litigation department and a judicial officer in the Bay Area. I've survived the pandemic with my doll houses. So I build little miniature versions of life. And so I just finished this Chinese food set, which I'm very proud of. And these little bags. I have 3 kids under 7. And so we were doing homeschooling with them. And like many of you, I barely survived. My kids made it very clear that I should never quit my day job, that I was apparently the worst teacher ever. So Catherine, I hope you're available if we ever go on lockdown again. I'll be dropping them off at your place. Because I should not be a teacher. But I'm so grateful to be part of this commission. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. I really believe very strongly in pro bono representation and giving back to our community. And so I'm really excited to be part of this group. Thanks for having me.
Joseph Lee.
Okay, so I was late to this because once again, I had a little technical issue, but I think I figured out the topics I was supposed to address briefly. So I am Joe Lee. I'm a partner at the Munger, Tolles & Olson firm. I do complex commercial litigation, a lot of wage and hour. Like Eric Iskin, my friend Eric Iskin, I should say, I'm a pro tem judge in traffic court and small claims. Although I will say I've done very little of that during the pandemic because I was not really here to go into crowded buildings, mask or not. But I've done it a few times more recently. And to stay sane during the pandemic, I body surf and mountain bike and run and continue to work at Munger Tolles. And in fact, for most of the time, we've been very busy. And so it's kind of been work as usual, except from a different location. Anyway, I'm very, very excited to join this commission. It's important work and look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Joe. Tammy Mahoney.
Good afternoon. Tammy Mahoney. I'm not an attorney. I'm a banker. Been doing it for 30 years now. I'm a chief risk officer at Luther Burbank Savings, located in Southern California. Surviving the pandemic, I think, was very difficult at the beginning. So a lot of you have children. I have children, but their ages between 19 and 22. So I've had kids coming home from college, kids missing graduations, their senior year of school. So it was really difficult. And I found it was, really, it was easy to get caught up in negative news. So we kind of started a tradition right away of, making a concerted effort, one, to wake up with gratitude and realize that we have it, we're very fortunate to be where we are. But we also started a tradition of, we have a group chat between myself and 3 kids where we share what 3 good things happened in that particular day. And it could be as simple as we heard our favorite song. So that's been going on for now almost 2 years. Staying in contact with friends and family, found a lot of fun virtual events, wine tasting, whiskey tasting, painting, arranged to get stuff boxed up and shipped. So that was, kept my sanity. And then also therapeutic was picking up puzzles, which I haven't done since I was a kid. And then the kids and I, again, adult kids, got back into Legos. And it was something we did when they were very little. But if I was home, I would show you some of the Legos that they make now. Very expensive, expensive habit, but really fun. It was something that we continue to do today, when they are all home now from college and things. So that's really what kept my sanity through the last couple of years. And like all of you, very grateful to be here and appreciate the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you, Tammy. Zahira Man.
Hello, everyone. So Zahira Man, I am an attorney, but I don't practice law anymore. I lead a nonprofit that focuses on poverty issues. And most recently, before that, I was working in philanthropy. So I guess part of surviving the pandemic was that I transitioned positions from philanthropy into becoming a nonprofit executive. I also have a 7-year-old, and so lots of virtual learning, virtual camp, virtual play dates, virtual life, and have spent lots of time just reconnecting with family on the East Coast and also friends who live abroad. Then the other piece in terms of something outside of like the computer screen and that level of interaction has been lots of walking in my neighborhood and just sort of enjoying that space, hikes, visiting the ocean, and then audio books and reading actual real books with paper, which has been really nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jim Meeker? Jim, are you there? I thought I saw you, but maybe.
He's just
I'm muted. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm a professor emeritus for University of California, Irvine. I'm also, so I'm retired. I'm also on the Access to Justice Commission. So between that commission and this one, spent a lot of time on Zoom. I spent the first half of the pandemic recovering from a septic arthritic infection in my knee, and then the second part, learning how to walk again on an artificial knee. And I'm happy to say now that the pandemic is kind of receding, my Experimental Aircraft Association chapter has started flying young eagles again, which is our youth and aviation program where we take kids between the ages 7 and 17 up for airplane rides. And this last Saturday, I flew my 500th mission. So pretty happy with that.
Planto?
Planthold. So Rich, you ought to know, I was born and raised in St. Louis, but I moved out here in 71 to get away from winter and to enjoy the weather and the, I will say, great transit systems out here. I've been keeping safe. I'm fully vaccinated now, which is a chore. I've read books on the Russian Revolution as an example of how media distorts the facts by what it selects and what it avoids. I also have gotten a positive settlement on an ADA lawsuit I filed against a major supermarket chain. So that's a small victory for disabled access.
Thank you. Judge Jaskol?
Hello. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, and it's really nice to be here and to hear everyone and get some idea of people's backgrounds. I'm a judge on the Los Angeles Superior Court, and I guess it's been a little over 5 years now, which is really amazing. Before that, I was at Los Angeles legal services agency called Public Counsel. And one of the reasons I was able to have that position is because Public Counsel obtained a partnership grant to do an appellate self-help clinic at the California Court of Appeal, which was quite successful. So thank you for that. And so I spent quite some time at Public Counsel. That was my second stint at Public Counsel. A few years before that, I spent time at Public Counsel as head of the Homelessness Prevention Law Project. And before that, I was a partner at a law firm, more of a boutique in Los Angeles called Horvitz and Levy, which specializes in appeals. I'm also a member of the Access to Justice Commission. I also, like Catherine, read the Over story. I'm part of a book group, and other members of the book group are really on top of good literature. I would not have been able to find that by myself, but it's just blew me away. It's an amazing book. Rich, you recommended, what was it, Golden Spruce?
Right. It's a true story. Great book.
I'll definitely read that. So thank you, everyone, and good to meet you all.
Thank you. Justice Murray? Justice Murray, are you on? Judge Seligman?
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
Oh.
Hold on one second. Sorry, I was multitasking. Hi. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Murray. I sit on the Court of Appeal in Sacramento, the 3rd District. I think I've been a member of the commission or advisory member appointed by the chief since 2013. I wish I could have something exciting to report about what I've done during the pandemic, but basically I've just been trying to do my day job and all the other judicial branch related activities, advisory committees and education programming that I'm involved in. And so just juggling a bunch of balls in the air. And I'm a little sad to report that, well, maybe not that sad, that I'll be leaving the commission in January. The reason why I'm sad is I'm going to miss you guys, but the reason why I'm not sad is because I'm retiring on my 65th birthday in January. And so I had a little health challenge a few years ago, and that's another reason why I haven't been doing anything exciting during the pandemic, because I've just been trying to stay out of the way of the virus, and decided back then that I would retire the minute I turned 65, which is our mandatory minimum age for retirement. So that's been my plan, and that is my plan. And I'll be doing other things, maybe doing some volunteer work like a lot of the other retirees on this commission. And who knows, I may end up back here at some point in time if somebody thinks it's appropriate for me to be here. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, including my retirement plans.
Thank you, Justice Murray. Judge Seligman.
Howdy, everybody. I'm a judge at Alameda Superior Court. In my prior life, I was the executive director of the Impact Fund, which was a support center. And I go back long enough that I actually remember Dan did an audit, I think, and showed up. And that was many years ago. So we're not getting any younger, I guess, is all I can say. Before the pandemic hit, my wife and I were in the process of downsizing as our kids grew up. We sold our big old house in Berkeley and moved to a really nice, smaller house in Alameda. And since then, our house has become something of a clown car. We're trying to see how many people we can stick in it. All 3 of my adult kids are back home. My wife's parents have moved in the back, but we built an ADU during the pandemic. That's not enough because we just want more and more people. So about 9 months ago, we decided we would adopt a little dog. And the idea was the dog had to be less than 40 pounds and a female and not a puppy, because we didn't want to deal with that. So of course, we adopted a boy who is now at 10 months old, 80 pounds in weight, and a whole lot of love there for this guy who is there. That's Frankie. That's not enough yet. My oldest daughter, who is living with us now, intends to get pregnant. And my guess is that baby's going to be in our house too. So we're doing a test here. How many people can you fit in there? The fun part about it is I love them all. We have developed these new habits and regimes. We have Friday night movie night where we watch various movies. Tuesday night takeout night where we take out stuff. We start each meal by holding hands and taking a deep breath and saying whatever kind of grace kind of thing we want to do. And it's really quite lovely. It'll go on for a while. At some point, my wife and I will be there alone, and although we'll miss everybody, that would also be something fun to do.
Thank you, Judge Seligman. And Rich, we have quorum. Would you like me to do liaisons and state bar staff?
Yes, I think we missed Chris Schreiber and anyone else that we missed during roll call who would like to weigh in.
Oh, great. Chris is here.
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I was in transit. I'm Chris Schreiber. This is, I think, I too joined in 2013, so I've been on the commission for a while, and former chair, future chair, I guess. I am happy to be pulling out of the pandemic, I hope, as an extrovert. Have missed many of my social routines. I have 3 teenage kids who are now 14, 16, and 18, and a recent high school graduate, and 2 still at Oakland Tech. I have a practice, my own firm in San Francisco, and we do plaintiff side civil rights, consumer and employment rights cases, and it is a bustling, too busy practice at the moment. And I read a book called Breath just the last week or so about breathing, and I recommend. It's quite grounding to think about what we do quite naturally.
Breathtaking.
Breath giving, yes.
Did I miss any other commissioners? Okay, great.
Dawn, Kim Savage just joined. We're not able to promote her for some reason, but we have unmuted her. So Kim, if you should be able to speak and participate.
Kim, can you hear, are you able to unmute yourself?
Give instructions on what buttons to punch. Is it *6, *9, *3?
I believe it's *6.
Yeah,
but
that's what I
Kim-
had to do on my phone.
Kim, this is Elizabeth. I'll email you if there's some technical difficulties.
So we'll come back to Kim then. Okay, so I'll finish doing for our roll call for liaisons and staff. Selena Copeland?
Present.
Bonnie Huff?
Present.
Christine Gonang? Mark Tony, I don't see. Elizabeth? Crystal Bundang?
Present.
Erica Carroll?
Here.
Dan Pasamenek? Brady Dewar? Brady, I thought I saw you, but maybe not.
Yeah, sorry, here.
Okay, great. And Donna Hershowitz.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Great. So I'll pass it back to you, Rich.
And Dwana, I'll just say Melanie Snyder is also here from the
Oh,
Judicial
okay, great.
Council.
Hi, Melanie.
All right, this is a public meeting, and we invite any of the members of the public to please identify yourselves at this time. Hearing none, Dwan, I think we can go on to the consent part of the agenda.
Great. And this is you too, Rich, the approvals of the 2 action summaries.
So we have an action summary of the August 13th, 2021 meeting, which had to deal with timing of the Homelessness Prevention Committee's work and the need to have a special commission meeting in December, which will probably have to go a bit longer than scheduled. And if you've had a chance to read it, I open this up to comment on that. If there isn't any comment, I'll ask for consent on that item. All right, hearing no questions or other comments, I would like to move that to the consent aspect. Go on.
Oh, would someone want?
I'll move that we approve the action summary.
Second.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, so Eric moved and was it Christina that second?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll do roll call. Rhinus,
Yes.
Savage, Shriver,
Yes.
Vanarelli,
Yes.
Aglagi,
Yes.
Al-Saraf,
I'll abstain.
Ball, Fightmaster,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Blakemore,
Yes.
Boschelli,
Yes.
Connolly,
Yes.
Friedman, Galkin, Iskin,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Abstain.
Mann,
Yes.
Meeker,
Yes.
Plantold,
Yes.
motion passes.
An item?
Sorry, Rich, you unmuted yourself at the last part. We didn't catch what you said.
Yeah, we, on one agenda, today, the agenda on the State Bar website, we only have this one action item, but in the agenda, I see a second action item with respect to the September 20th, 2021 meeting. Do you want to have a consent vote on that as well?
Oh, that wasn't on the State Bar website. I'm sorry, that must be an error. Okay, then we can't vote on it, Rich. I'm sorry, that's an error. We didn't post that. We'll save that for the next commission meeting then.
All right, then let's move on to a report from you, Dwan, on the Office of Access and Inclusion.
Great, and I'm going to collapse my report as well as the report on IOLTA and Justice Gap Fund revenue into one. So the staff has been hard at work kind of finishing up our obligations for 2021. We sent out grant agreements for the homelessness prevention formula grants, and now we're working on issuing several hundred more grant agreements after this commission meeting for approval of IOLTA EF partnership and all other various grants. So we've been hard at work on that. We are also finalizing our last few visits, monitoring visits for the year. This year we had a total of 41 visits. We only have a few more left, and I'll have a full report once we've concluded that. And then just a quick update on IOLTA revenue, which is some good news. We're in a much better position than what we had originally projected. As you all may recall, we were projecting to collect about $16 million in IOLTA revenue for 2021. We have so far collected about 15 million. So we think we're on course to reach that 16 million by the end of this month, and probably surpass it somewhat once we have in December revenue. This is really good because there have been some of our larger banks that have contacted us to drop rates further. Luckily, one of them, they were going to drop rates from 0.68 basis points to 0.25, and we're able to negotiate it up to 0.3. So the increased IOLTA revenue across the board will help kind of offset that revenue loss from some of the larger banks. So we're keeping a really close eye on the banks. It's still very volatile, as Tammy and Jeff will let you know. We've been monitoring it pretty much on a weekly basis and working with our national consultants, and I'll provide another revenue update at the next commission meeting.
Yeah, for all of those who are relatively new to this, the discussion that Dwan just led us in with respect to the banks and costs incurred by the banks, which they're permitted to deduct from the interest, is critical to the amount of money that we can grant every year. Work on the banks and those institutions that are housing IOLTA money is significant and directly related to how much we can achieve. Okay, thanks, Dwan. You want to move on now to Carolina?
Oh, that was my update on behalf of Carolina, the IOLTA revenue update.
All right, we are moving quickly. Let's move to very significant. I see two hands raised. Can I go to Bonifshay and then to Eric?
Thank you. And thank you for that report out as well, Dwan. You know, historically, we've had two seats on this commission occupied by bankers. And so it's so great to see that Tammy has joined us, and we've got Jeff here as they'll help us think through this and navigate these waters that are ahead of us. Just wanted to ask Dwan, I know that there's kind of a informal group that you and Carolina reach out to Jeff, and now we'll be able to reach out to Tammy. Tammy, I just want you to know you're going to be busy. So how is that going? There was a discussion about a working group in the past. Just is it still kind of in an informal way? And whatever it is, if it's serving the staff, continue doing it. Just wanted to kind of get a sense of what's happened with that.
We're continuing with the informal kind of reaching out, and Jeff has been pretty instrumental to us. We've been reaching out to him several times. When this one bank that I was referencing had contacted us to say, you know, they wanted to drop it from 0.68 to 0.25. We did reach out to him to see does he think, is there any room for kind of negotiation? And he did provide us with some support. And again, we're able to get them up from 0.25 to 0.3, which will help shoulder that. So Jeff has been really great. And at Tammy, some point we would love to reach out to you as well for your expertise. And we're hoping for the upcoming year to have a little bit more of a strategy in terms of maybe perhaps going out to law firms and doing a presentation on IOLTA, and if there's possible ways there that we can collaborate with law firms that hold a lot of IOLTA deposits. We may try to do that, but we are trying to figure out if there is more of a concerted strategy. We have the leadership program, the bank program, which has helped in the last few years, but we definitely, Elizabeth, Caroline, and I want to put our brains together and think through if there are other kind of strategies to help increase interest revenue for IOLTA.
That's great. Thank you for that background as well. And welcome, Tammy, and also welcome to all the new commission members. Thank you.
Eric?
Yeah, so I just had a question about the possible impact of the inflationary environment that I guess we're starting to find ourselves in, and whether that might have an impact on interest rates, particularly whether that might suggest that interest rates will go up. I'm just wondering. I don't know the answer to my question.
I don't know the answer to your question, but I know there's been a lot of chatter. I don't know if Tammy, do you have any insights?
Well, it's definitely unpredictable, but from what we're hearing, it looks like interest rates will remain steady for a bit. I think into 2022, it looks like it will still remain a pretty low environment as of right now, but of course that can change tomorrow whenever Fed meets again. So hard to say.
My take on that, Eric, is that there's what we count on is the margin, the differential between bank costs and bank interest. And if there is inflation, it may impact the costs as well as the interest rates. So the differential may not change that much. Who knows? I suspect we'll have to take it one day at a time. All right. Next item on the agenda. Are we ready to move on, Duan?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So we're at agenda item 5, 2021 administrative activities. Rich, Kim, and I have prepared some slides to go over some of the big substantive changes in Senate Bill 211 and Senate Bill 498 that was passed. And so I'll let me share my screen and the slides. And Rich and Kim, please feel free to jump in, and Donna as well, if you have.
Yeah, Donna, I hope you'll help us with this.
Bear with me while
this is in your packet of information if you have that up on another screen, but we'll show you the actual legislation and the changes that have been made.
Give me a second to run it from the top. Okay, great. So I just put together some really high level of what Senate Bill 211 does. So, the main crux of this legislation is to expand the commission's authority. And then we'll go through, I've pulled out the section where it's the most relevant. It also changes the appointing entities for the Trust Fund Commission. I also have a slide comparing what it was before and what it is now. The Judicial Council is also now going to be appointing the chair and the vice chair of the commission. There's also a provision here that expands the definition of civil legal services to include expungements, record steering, and other criminal clearance proceedings. And this work was done specifically that came out from the Rules Committee Working Group, and it was tucked into SB 211. And SB 211 also says that the expungement record clearance work can now be funded by IOLTA and EF funding. The legislation is going to be going into effect January 1st of 2022. And if there's any commissioners that are serving as of January 1st, may continue to serve until the appointing entity or January 1st of 2024, so whichever comes first. Okay. So here's a slide comparing the appointing entities and the Trust Fund Commission before and after. So the total number of commissioners will remain the same at 24. Before, 14 commissioners were appointed by the board, State Bar Board of Trustees, and the other 10 was appointed by the Judicial Council. So now we have some additional appointing entities. The State Bar still retains 6 appointment positions. The Senate committee now has 2 appointments, and the Speaker of the Assembly has an additional 2 appointments, and the Judicial Council appointments remain the same at 10, with 3 non-voting Judicial Council, Judicial advisors. And then the commission itself has 4 commissioners. And in terms of kind of term limits, there are no term limits on the Judicial Council appointees as they are, as it was before. However, for all other appointments, there are term limits that mirror, there was a State Bar rule change last year that mirror that State Bar rule change of 4 years up to 2 terms, and then they can be reappointed as vice chair or chair for a maximum of 10 years. So let me just pause there to see if there are any kind of questions on this kind of structural change.
If you go back to the slide before, I think Justice Murray should take a look at the date of his retirement, because if he is a commissioner as of January 1st, 2022, he may continue to serve.
That's correct. If he chooses to continue to serve, he may, or if once he decides to come out from retirement, I'm sure we can find a place for him for one of these appointments.
Yeah. I was thinking I'd ride off into the sunset on January 27th, Rich, to be honest with you. So
you don't get off that easy.
I can see the sunset on the horizon, Rich.
We'll miss you. We'll miss you. We'll do
you.
what we can to get you to come back.
Thank you.
Sir, are there any questions or comments on this, the structural change? If not, then I'll proceed. Okay, so I pulled out from the legislation the section that's most substantive, I think relevant, that we should spend a little bit time kind of looking through. But Rich and Kim and I have been trying to study this legislation, and we do think that as the year comes, as we proceed with our work during the year, things will come up that will take it from abstraction to something concrete, and then that's where we'll kind of test the boundaries of what the statutory changes is going to look like for the commission and staff. So at the crux of it, the commission is still going to need to elevate to the Board of Trustees, certain things for determination. However, and I highlighted here, the Board of Trustees shall approve the recommendation and will only override it if it makes a finding in writing that the recommendation conflicts with the statutory, fiduciary, or legal obligation of the State Bar. So this does expand the commission's authority. And it gives the commission, and I think our reading, kind of that policy authority. The Board of Trustees won't override it for a policy reason, only if it conflicts with the statutory, fiduciary, and legal obligation. And I'll take a pause there, and Rich and Kim and Donna, please chime in.
Yeah, I would just say that for those of us who understand presumptions in trials, this is a presumption flip. It's the commission's determination will be final here, except under limited circumstances when the trustees would then have the right to make a determination contrary to that with respect to a grant that might have been approved by the commission. Previously, what we would do is recommend to the State Bar, but this recognizes, in effect, the boots on the ground. Over the many years that I made presentations to the Board of Trustees of our recommendations, not once did I get a question. And so, in effect, the final determination as to what grants were really made by the commission, although it required trustee approval. Now there's sort of a flip. And our determinations are going to be final, except for challenges that might be made with respect to policy issues or violations of guidelines of any kind. So this recognizes the practical operation of the commission since I've been on it, and I'm certain for years before that. I wanted to just go back to one thing on one of the slides. I think much discussion was held last year at commission and committee meetings with respect to expungement and other criminal or quasi-criminal activities undertaken by qualified legal service providers. And this legislation is a direct outgrowth of those conversations to make it quite clear that we can fund activities related to what are criminal or semi-criminal kinds of proceedings as opposed to strictly civil. Go ahead, Dawn.
Donna, do you have anything else you'd like to add to this?
So yeah, I think the way I encapsulate sort of the language that Dwan has here on the screen right now is that the legislation sought to provide increased autonomy to the Trust Fund Commission, and essentially what it's doing is saying that the Board of Trustees is not to substitute its judgment for the judgment of the commission, unless, as Juan read, unless in the Board of Trustees opinion, the recommendation of the Trust Fund Commission affirmatively conflicts with a statutory fiduciary or legal obligation. So it really is conferring that increased autonomy onto the commission, as with any advisory body to the Board of Trustees. Whenever rules, for example, a rule is proposed, the board would take a look at the rule and say, we think that provision should be different. We think the policy should be different. What this is saying is that vis-a-vis the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission, the rules, for example, that you propose, absent there being a conflict with the statutory fiduciary or legal obligation, the board's judgment as to whether or not that's the right policy will not substitute the policy of the Trust Fund Commission. And for me, that's what I see as really sort of the biggest change here. When it comes to grants, largely the individual grants were not presented to the Board of Trustees. Those were decided by the Trust Fund Commission. The one item about grants that was presented to the Board of Trustees was the annual recommendation as to the total amount of IOLTA funds that would be distributed to grantees, not by program, but the total amount. Right, looking at, as those of you who are continuing on the commission know, sort of looking at did we select the conservative approach? Did we select a more aggressive approach when it comes to estimating what interest rates would be? Those are the kinds of decisions that, absent a conflict with a statutory fiduciary or legal obligation, the Board of Trustees is not empowered to step into the shoes of the commission. Although in Rich's experience, as he said, the board has typically found the work of the commission on these types of things to be incredibly thorough and didn't find the need to change the recommendation. Going forward, would not be in the board's purview to change that recommendation, absent those conflicts that I mentioned.
And as Rich and Kim and I have been planning the last couple months, we don't anticipate any kind of big changes in terms of the business, the day-to-day of the commission and staff and the interaction between staff and the commission. There may be some subtle changes, and I'll give you an example. We've been working on finalizing our contract with the State Bar, with the Judicial Council. And usually there's a signatory that's the representative of the State Bar. We have now included Rich and Kim as also a co-signatory on behalf of the State Bar. So there'll be changes like that. And as things come up, then we'll have to deal to see if there may be larger changes. But as of now, and how we're planning towards our 2022 work plan, which we'll discuss in a later agenda item, there's not going to be any major structural or substantive changes. But that may change, and we may be tested.
You'll find the guts of this slide at page 14 of chapter 723, which is included in your packet right up at the top and on the balance of that page. And Bob Planthold has a hand up.
Thank you. Donna's characterization raises a question. In talking of us as an advisory body to the Board of Trustees, it almost seems to me that now that the board, trust fund commission has power, which can be only overridden in rare limited circumstances. We're no longer an advisory body. We've been elevated beyond above that. To me, I'll make a crude comparison, like a trial court decision stands unless appealed to and overridden by an appeals court. And it strikes me that now our decision stands, so we're not advisory. I don't know what we should consider ourselves, but I want us to think about that, not for a decision now, but if we have power to make a decision that stands, unless figuratively appealed and overridden, we're not advisory. We're something more than that. I'll stop there, and we can cogitate upon that between now and whenever. Thank you.
And that was just I was just sort of relating to how the Board of Trustees interacts with the advisory bodies, the advisory bodies that report to it. And so, yes, this does sort of create a sort of a different characterization for the Trust Fund Commission. Whether or not we need to really characterize it is something that I would certainly defer to the Commission on. But yes, it creates a sort of a separate path for the Trust Fund Commission. I didn't mean to imply otherwise.
Yeah, Donna, I think this is something of an outgrowth of the working group's conclusions that were reached several years ago.
Yes.
Will, you had a hand up.
I realized that Duan wasn't done here, and I wanted to wait.
No,
for the
not at
rest
all.
of
Go
them.
ahead, Will. Go ahead.
Okay. I guess I'm curious, will this have an impact on our timelines? Will we have more time, or does there need to be that approval vote and we'll still need to hit those deadlines?
I don't see any substantive change in our work. I don't see any substantive change in our calendar. We still have to plow through a great deal and do the work as we've always done it before. But there is one change that is coming up that you'll see as Duan goes through this that may have an impact.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, I'll proceed. Okay, so next steps. This is what Rich was alluding to. So for those of you that have been on the commission for the last few years, in 2018, the state bar underwent what was called the stakeholder working group engagement process to kind of look into the trust fund commission and the structure, and also the guidelines and policies of our grants. And from that kind of working group process, they passed what was called a functional matrix that kind of delineates and kind of clarifies what state bar staff's role is versus the commission versus the board of trustees. So in light of the passage of 211, what Rich and Kim and I are proposing to the commission is we take a closer look at that functional matrix and update that. And in taking a closer look at that, then perhaps we'll have some more concrete things that we can identify that will be changes that are based on 211. And what Rich and Kim are proposing is that this functional matrix, because it's quite detailed and quite substantive, that it really needs some commissioners to take a closer look with staff, that this will get delegated to the rules committee to work on, and then be brought back at a later commission meeting sometime early next year. Rich,
Yeah,
Kim, I don't know if I captured that.
Yeah, I think you did, but I just want to do a little interpretive work. The words functional matrix might be looked at as a business plan or business model. And it's also, in my view, a question of disclosure. The functional matrix is helpful, I would think, to any grant applicant in understanding what we're doing, when we're doing it, and for us to understand the workflow of the commission. So it has a real purpose. It was a very positive outgrowth of the working group. And it was predicated previously on the old law. We have to update it for the new law. And one of the things that I wanted to mention in chapter 723, the amended 211, was that there was a condition imposed upon it that the definition of indigent person changed. And that's significant in the other piece of legislation we should discuss.
Yes. And then related to, because the Trust Fund Commission now has some appointing authority, Rich and Kim will also like to start up a nominations committee, and we'll hold off on some substantive discussion once Rich presents on the new committee assignments. But that's just to preview that. And again, like we mentioned, some of these issues, the legislation is pretty abstract. So some of this we can tackle on a case-by-case basis next year. Okay, now I'll go to a recap of SB 498, which was the other big piece of legislation that was passed that implicates our grants administration. So as you all know, this also came out of an outgrowth of the Rules Committee work. This legislation increases the client income threshold from 125% of the federal poverty threshold to 200%. And I can't underscore how great and large this statutory change is. This is something that has been discussed in the legal services community well before I came to the state bar 6 years ago. When I was a legal aid attorney, I know that there had been so much chatter, so at least 15, 20 years now, to raise this income threshold because it's just so low. So that was passed. The other substantive change is that veteran disability benefits will now not be counted as income when clients come to the door and seek legal services. I do want to note that the funding formula to determine grants is still based on 125% of the federal poverty threshold. So even though the client eligibility is going up to 200%, our funding formula, the statutory funding formula, is still based on 125% of the federal poverty threshold. The legislation, similar to SB 211, will be in effect January 1st, 2022. I do want to note that it won't be applied until the 2024 IOLTA and EF application, just because the 2024 application will then look back at 2022 data. So next year's application, next summer when programs go to apply for 2023 funding, it looks backwards to this year. And so that it won't apply for 2023 application, but it will for 2024. And I have a quick oh, go ahead, Rich.
I was just going to say to Will's point, which was a really good question, this change, it seems to me, might have an impact on our work. Now, in terms of eligibility, we are looking at quite a different landscape. The client population has suddenly increased. We are now on the same page as federal poverty levels for measurement of these sorts of things. And it's a remarkable change, and it should enable us to touch many more lives.
It really is a remarkable change. And Erica Carroll helped me pull these numbers so that you can see in a concrete way what that means. So at 125%, a family of four is making roughly $33,000, going up to 200%. It's at 53,000. So you'll see it's a significant increase. And you'll see that on the right here, at 125%, there are about a little bit over 7 million Californians that would qualify using our funding. Raising it to 200% will increase that pool by about 5 million. So just really, really tremendous. This is great work, great collaboration between the commission staff and LAC and the legal services community to get this statutory change. And Rich, that's all I have for this agenda item.
That's it for me. Kim, did you have some ideas you wanted to share here?
Not at this time, thank you.
And Rich, I think Selena has her hand up.
Right.
Sorry, I was finishing my lunch. I wanted to make one point about the chart that Dwan just showed, just in case commissioners thought that there are now 5 million more people who were being turned away. Many organizations were serving between 125 and 200%. So I just want to make it clear that it's not that we're nearly doubling the amount of people who will be coming to legal aid. It's just that all organizations will be able to serve the pot of individuals who only some organizations were able to serve because of other funding. Because I know people may be worried about a lot of clients being turned away and now they won't. So just wanted to clarify that. And thank you, Dawn. I love seeing those numbers.
No, thank you for Selena for clarifying that. Yeah, as Selena was saying, this allows our grantees to use our funding to serve up to 200%.
I had a quick question. Will this significantly change the reporting requirements, or are the QLSPs so excited that they're like, we've already changed the forms for 2022?
So we are revamping our evaluations, and this is not because the 125 to 200% is changing, but because the budget bill for equal access funding requires the Judicial Council to submit to the legislature some outcomes, which means that the state bar will need to collect that information to remit it up. And then, as you all know, with the homelessness prevention funding, that's coming from federal funds. And so there are a lot of reporting requirements. So because of those two pieces, we will be collecting more data from our grantees and remitting, sharing it with you all, and then remitting it to the legislature. But I have to say, we've been working the last couple months, myself and Chris McConkey in our office, who's the committee coordinator for the HP. So I've had a preview of the HP data, and we will be sharing that with you in the next few months. And it's just really remarkable because for the first time, we're collecting demographics data. We're able to tie it back to zip code. And this is something that we hope that once you see how valuable it is, that we'll be moving in that direction for some of our other grants.
Before we get to Eric, I just wanted to mention in SB 211, I don't think this is necessarily new, but just above section 6213 of the Business and Professions Code, there's a reference to the state bar performing an audit. Duana, I don't know if this is new or not, but I think it may.
It's newer, but it's not new to this coming year. For the last few years, and I can't recall, Donna might know off the top of her head, I think it might be 2 or 3 years now, we've had a specific audit for our trust fund program. The state bar itself is subject to a state bar audit that gets remitted to the legislature. The last couple of years, we've had a specific trust fund program audit, and I've been pleased to report the last 2 years that there have been no findings on our part.
So the specific language is that the state bar shall develop a program to audit a representative sample of grant awards each year. The results of the most recent audit shall be included with the report of receipt of funds described in the subdivision. So that is, in a sense, a report, but it's not a report we have to submit. It's a state bar. Eric, to you.
Yeah. Does this change in the definition of indigency apply to all of our funding streams?
It does. It trickles down.
Everything.
Exactly.
And Will, did you have another question?
No, I was just saying congratulations. That's great work.
And this is pretty exciting for us. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so the next item is the work plan. So let me share with you. So as you recall, around this time every year, I walk you through the work plan, and it doesn't change significantly because the core work of the commission is grants administration. We're on a very, tight time frame. And so generally the work remains the same, but I do want to walk you through some of the changes.
These changes are consistent with the new statute.
Yeah, and some of them is to reflect the new statute. Sorry. Let me go to share my screen.
Bob, when this comes up, you will see the point you were making at the bottom of the first page.
Okay. Can you all see this? Can you see this, or is it, no, not yet?
Yes, it's showing.
Okay, great. So this first page is the charge of the commission, and I modified it to now reflect the appointments by the Senate committee and the Speaker of the Assembly. But again, no substantive changes here. 24 members. It lays out what the commission does, which is pretty much these bullet points are grants administration and to monitor the grants. I did make this change here. So instead of recommending to the board determines, we'll still be bringing this agenda item to the board later next year after the commission determines the IOLTA distribution. But again, the board won't have authority to override the decision unless it conflicts with the fiduciary or legal obligation.
This issue is one that'll be less complicated than it might otherwise appear when we have trustees that are participating in our committee meetings and at commission level meetings. And that will help us to understand as we go through this, that the trustees are aware of what we're doing under all circumstances.
And so I didn't put in track changes, the updates for 2022. I just put in track changes in the narrative itself. So The first one is unchanged. This is really the crux of what the commission does, is the distribution of the IOLTA and EF grant awards and to approve carryover and budget modifications, as well as partnership grants. So that remains unchanged. I do want to highlight this change here in relation to homelessness prevention grants, because that committee is now hard at work, finalizing the board recommendations for HP grants, but because we don't know whether we're going to receive more grant funding, I've removed the review and approved potential distribution plans, and also removed for the unspent funds and issuing another HP grant. If next year we receive more money from the legislation, obviously we'll modify this work plan to include that.
Hey, Duan, Justice Murray here. Sorry to interrupt. Can you zoom out to make that larger?
Oh, zoom. Okay, zoom in. Hold on. Let me see.
Zoom in. Yeah.
Does that help?
Yes, that's great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great. No problem. Okay, and then bank grants. The only substantive change for the bank grant committee is that they will be meeting, their main responsibility next year is to be reviewing and approving carryover and budget modifications. And then the second big task is that bank committee will need to determine whether to issue another RFP for 2023 funding. As you recall, a few years ago, we received a large settlement from the Department of Justice between Citi and Bank of America. This came out of all the foreclosure fiasco. And we received about $50-something million, and there's about $6 million left. So the bank committee will make a recommendation to the commission whether to release an RFP or hold off on that. And then, as you all will recall, last year we also, the statute was changed so that we would be awarding provisional licensed lawyer awards. So we've already distributed that. So we're not going to be releasing another RFP. It's right now, so we're just going to be in the monitoring phase. This remains unchanged in terms of reviewing our grantees to see if they're complying with our standards and authorities. I made this change here to reflect 211, so it'll be determined the 2023 IOLTA distribution instead of merely recommending. And then this here is in relation to our work around the rules codification process. And I had to make one modification here because the process is taking a little bit longer than we anticipated. So I modified it to say ongoing with the completion date of 2023, because we don't think we're going to get through all the issues next year. And then this, this is in regards to kind of all of our outcomes measure. I added a bullet point to aggregate and analyze EF evaluations. And then we are still working on this bullet point that was added last year, which I'll just read out. Based on recommendations from the Justice Gap Study, research and explore recruitment and retention strategies for legal attorneys, including the creation of a statewide LRAP program. And this, we've made a lot of headway on this, and we should be able to prepare a proposal for you Q1 of next year in relation to the creation of a statewide LRAP program. And that's the end of the work plan.
Duan, would you go back to the first page at the bottom just for a second? I want to go to the PLL program, just one item there, and it relates to other issues. Yes. We've implemented this PLL program where provisionally licensed lawyers are working out QLSPs, and we've funded a number of them, what, 15 about? Is that right?
I believe it's closer to 20, but it's.
So the point that's made here is one that relates to everything that we do, and that is post-grant collection of data drives future grants. And monitoring it is no simple task, and it's extremely important to justify what we're doing. And these programs that we're funding ought to have great value, but we need to continue to follow them to be certain after funding that they're performing as intended. And in doing so, gather the data in order to make certain these programs can continue. Okay, let's move on.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments related to the work plan? Can I get a motion to approve the work plan?
So moved.
Second.
So Bob moved, and I'm sorry, who seconded?
Chris,
Great, okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Rhinus,
aye.
Savage, Schreiber,
Yes.
Vanarelli,
Yes.
Aglagi,
Yes.
Al-Saraf,
Yes.
Ball, Fightmaster,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Blakemore,
Yes.
Bashelli,
Yes.
Connolly,
Yes.
Friedman, Galkin, Iskin,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Meeker,
Yes.
Planthold,
Yes.
motion passes. Thank you.
Now we're going to move on to item Roman 5C.
And this is you, Rich, and I can pull up as you're talking, share the committee assignments.
Okay. Get a shared screen and then we'll go over these committee assignments and ask for your approval.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, maybe you want to blow that up a bit.
Okay.
Juan, this explains why all these bottom of the alphabet people are being called earlier in the roll call votes.
Oh, yes. It's not quite alphabetical, but yes.
So we have 4 basic commission meetings a year and 4 XCOM meetings. Chris and Christina are going to succeed us, or pick up where we've left off, hopefully. And that committee includes Bonifay, who's got her hand up. So we recognize you, Bonifay.
Thank you. You mean in terms of the homelessness prevention, right? Not the XCOM that I'm a member of. Just really quick before we move forward, I just noticed that for the homelessness prevention subcommittee, you have me terming off.
Oh,
in
yes, this is right.
2022, But then in
this was posted
eligibility.
before you. I'm sorry, I apologize, Bonifay.
No problem.
Posted before you contacted me, yes.
Okay, great. So which is it? I don't know.
You're off of this committee. I'm sorry. I didn't get a chance to update that once it was.
No,
posted.
that's okay. I've actually remained on the committee. Mine is, the question actually is 2022 or 2023 that I term off. And I'm not sure if anyone else has a.
Oh, is that, okay, that's I'll double check that.
Thank you.
But I heard that you were responding to the fact that you're happy to be on that committee.
Highly happy. I'm
Oh,
doing-
are you back on? Okay, so we'll put you back on, Bonifay?
Yeah.
I had notified the staff that you were, okay.
I think the question, Dawn, is that she's just has different dates maybe in different parts of this document.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's an error. So we'll check Bonifay and update this with your right
That's
termed out.
I'm not sure if anyone else has a similar question.
And I'll keep scrolling down. And I think everybody that has been notified, this shouldn't come as any surprises. You've been notified and have accepted because you have time. But there is one change down here, and I'll let Rich talk about the nominations.
Well, before we get there, I just want to thank the committee chair and all committee members for participating. Chris, did you want to say something?
We were gonna talk about nominations later, so I'll wait.
Okay. I want to thank everybody who is going to serve on these. This is this commission is a working group. I mean, we're all involved in pretty heavy duty work. In fact, we're spread so thin that some people are on more than one committee. And for that, I'm very appreciative. But I did want to, and if you'll scroll back to the beginning, Dawn, I just want to congratulate the chairs on having this responsibility, accepting the responsibility and organizing us and helping us throughout the year with Jim and Erica and Eric in partnership. And I want to make special mention of Bob's chairmanship of the Bank Grants Committee. I told Bob I would do this, so I hope I'm not embarrassing him. I've been on this commission a long time, so has Kim, and the two of us conferred on this, and both of us selected Bob because he's been a member of the Bank Grants Committee for a very long time. He knows the ropes. He has earned this position and has been dedicated to helping that committee work. And he is, to my knowledge, the first client member of this commission ever to chair a committee. So congratulations to you, Bob.
Thank you.
And Will, before we get back to Chris, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I actually just had a question. I wanted to throw my name into the hat for the Rules Committee because I'm very passionate about systems and I understand how rules and regulations implement that. And I actually have no idea how to do that, whether it's to petition this commission or the executive committee or just you, Rich. I don't know how best to do that, but I have a passion in that area and think I might be able to add value and wanted to find out how.
Well, I appreciate your asking. I will take it up with Amin and with staff and see where we can get that to, but I really appreciate it. You know, you're welcome to attend any meeting, but let's see what we can do about furthering that.
Yeah, that would be great because I have been attending a few, but I find that because you don't get all of the emails and you can't engage in the collaboration in the same way when you're a member of the public, where you can have a bit of a dialogue and understand where people are coming from and where rules may have originated. So however I can move that along, I would love to know, and just let me know whose door I need to knock on.
Got it.
Metaphorically.
Okay, Bob?
The question about membership on Rules Committee made me look at the membership, and I want to call attention. Louise Bales Fightmaster has a 2021 date after her, as if that's when her term as a commission member ends. Is that so, or is she going to be eligible for reappointment? Does she want to be reappointed? You know, we might lose somebody from Rules Committee based on that 2021 date being accurate.
No, I apologize. I think this is the term dates are we didn't update it because Luis was reappointed. So this will have an ending date of, I think it's a 3-year term. Bonnie can correct me if I'm wrong, for 2024.
Good, thank you.
But good pickup, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, so let's go to the idea that Chris was talking about and Kim. Louise, did you want to pipe up?
No, I was just going to say, I assumed, I saw that myself, but I had been notified that it was wrong, so.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Luis. We'll get that updated. Okay. We'll do a sweep of all the term dates because they might be other mistakes.
To Kim.
Yes, in regarding nominations.
Yes.
Okay, let me first apologize. I was in my car after landing at the airport, and so I couldn't quite connect fully, but welcome to new members and returning commissioners. We think it's going to be just a terrific year. And as Rich, I'm sure, has said, please call on us with questions, ideas, concerns. My idea, which is why I'm speaking to you right now, is that I would like to rebirth the nominations committee. And it is extremely important, excuse me, to have an ongoing search for new commissioners. And so I would invite you to let me know or let Rich know if you are interested in recommending someone to the commission. As you all know, and we repeat many times, this is a working commission. So if you have ideas of individuals, we strive for diversity in every way, geographically, background, experience. And so if you have recommendations of people, let us know. And even better yet, if you would like to be a member of the nominations committee, we are really looking to reform that, get that going again. And we know everybody's pretty stretched, but please let us know if you're interested. And if you're not interested, but you have ideas of people who you think would really contribute and work hard, please let us know. Thank you.
Now, keep in mind that this commission will be appointing 4 members as new commission members under the new appointment schedule. Chris?
I was just going to add, I was going to say the same thing Kim did, but which is just to say, the only other thing I'd say is by changing the authority of the commission, we have taken on more responsibility. I would say, in terms of considering people to nominate, their interest in social justice, to me, is an overriding consideration. Legal background, frankly, I think is helpful, but not essential. And so I would say casting a wide net and having engaged and interested members who are willing to put in the work is really important. So I just, want everybody to recognize this additional responsibility really is going to put the onus on us to keep this commission strong, and I have every faith we can do it.
Anushay.
I just want to echo the importance of the nomination committee. When I first came on, I was nominated by the late Dick Odgers and David Lash, and the process of that onboarding, meeting with the commission members and going through literally a formal interview process to see whether or not the commission member that is being nominated or the potential commission member being nominated is a good fit for this commission and the work that we are doing, and for them to see whether or not this body is a good fit for them is crucial. And I think the last several years we've not had that streamlined approach that we've had traditionally, and there may have been some steps missed along the way. So I want to underscore the importance of the nomination committee for this body, but also to say that, though we are responsible for 4 that we are looking to appoint, we don't work in a vacuum. We will still be obviously working with the state bar and supporting and in search of and making nominations for their seats. We work very closely with Bonnie and the Judicial Council from that vantage point as well. So, and then, these legislative appointments, it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to be looking for folks to add to this mix. So I think this body, this nominating subcommittee will be able to help navigate these waters as this is brand new for everyone involved, all the bodies involved, but also be a kind of a support system of sorts in getting these resumes, reviewing them, interviewing them, sitting with them, and for them to see whether or not this is right for them and if they are right for us. So just wanted to add a couple of extra contextualized statements there.
Thank you. Adwan.
I was just going to say what Bonnie should say. I think this nominations committee is more than the 4 appointments that you have. I mean, it'd be great for us to be able to vet and build a pipeline so that we can pass along those recommendations to the legislature, Judicial Council, and also obviously the state bar also have appointments.
Okay. Any more comments on this? Then I think we can take a look at the administrative calendar now. Do we need a vote on this?
We don't need a vote.
All right.
Okay. And then administrative calendar, I just want to point out in your meeting packet, we have meeting dates for the commission for 2022. Sometime this week, Kim Wormsley in our office will be sending out Outlook calendar invites. I wanted to send them out after, so you had a heads up for the 4 meeting dates for 2022. The committees themselves, I think the staff coordinators are still working out logistics with their committee members. Once those are finalized, they will be sent out. I'll compile them and then I'll send the full list again before the end of the year is out. But we definitely wanted to get those at least 4 commission meetings on your calendar because we know that your calendars are starting to fill up as well. And that's it, Rich, for my update.
All right, we're not going to put that up on the screen. You're on mute.
I wasn't planning to unless.
No, that's fine. I don't think that there'll be any issues with that. Okay, so then let's move on to item 6 on the agenda, IOLTA and EF grants. And Erica and Eric, turn it over to you.
It's Erica and Erica, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It's 2 Ericas.
2 Ericas.
It's not Erica, Eric. There's a lot of us. So we had our eligibility and budget review committee meeting this morning before this meeting. First off, let me thank all the committee members and the staff for attending that meeting and going on a very long day. We had a lot to cover and I really appreciate them putting a lot of effort to kind of get through a lot of complicated stuff. So as to 6A, the eligibility and budget review, there were 34 organizations that submitted requests to either revise their budgets or to make carryovers. As a reminder, requests between 10 and 25% can be approved by staff, and requests above 25% have to be approved by the commission for budget revisions. Also in we had set in 2020 a very liberal carryover policy given the pandemic. And so we allowed very significant carryovers from 2020 into 2021. And we also allowed organizations to take the full year to spend down their carryover money, whereas generally they have to spend it down in 6 months after the fiscal year in which they got or the calendar year that they got the award. And we had given them notice earlier in the year in a resolution that while we understood the pandemic was ongoing, we wanted to start to move away from quite as liberal of a policy as we had in 2020, because obviously our goal here is to ensure that the money is actually going out to services. We felt like it was time that organizations should be beginning to adjust. And therefore, we were telling them that we're going to go back to the 6 months for 2022 if there's any carryovers, and that we would be less overall liberal in our assessment. There were 8 carryover requests and 2 budget revisions that were above 25% for IOLTA funds, and for EAF there were 7 carryover requests and 1 budget revision above 25%. So again, those are the ones that have to come to the committee and then ultimately the commission for review. The staff recommended approval on most of those requests, but there were 6 requests that they deferred to the committee on. And those generally were the deferral to the committee was given, or the reason to do that was because many of the requests were either very large, either in percentage or in actual numbers. And those of you who've reviewed the memo, can see what some of those were, or the explanations were a little bit vague or not very clear as to how the organizations, why they weren't able to spend down the money. And a concern that we discussed at length was how are they going to absorb the money in the next year? Because there's, some of these, especially the very big ones, we wanted to make sure if the money is not being spent, it ought to be redistributed. So we discussed several things in our meeting today, and essentially came out to those 6 that we asked, that the staff had asked to defer to the committee. Several organizations actually appeared at the meetings. They answered our questions. We really appreciated the information they gave us, but we really couldn't come to an agreement on whether, we wanted more information about what they plan to do in 2022. And there, I think, is also a concern about how liberal we want to be going forward and whether, we need to have some kind of upper cap on the carryovers. So what we essentially resolved to do is have staff put together a working group of a couple of the committee members who will go and do some back gathering from those 6 organizations and essentially find out what the plans are and kind of come together with some recommendations for the committee, potentially for an additional meeting before a December commission meeting, and essentially make some recommendations to us about whether to actually approve those, whether there should be, whether they should be approved in whole, in part, whether some of them, it's appropriate to only approve a certain amount of money, other money may need to go back into the pot. So we didn't want to make any decisions that either give notice to the organizations about some of the, kind of concerns that we had, or if we were concerned about making some caps, we didn't want those to be like arbitrarily done. So that is going to be pushed over until December. We did, however, vote to recommend to the commission that the ones that the staff recommended for approval, we agreed with the staff's recommendations, and we recommend to the commission that the commission approve those budget revisions and carryover requests as well. And those were generally smaller numbers, smaller percentages, and better explanations about what happened and why circumstances were going to be different in the new year, such that we felt more confident that the organization could absorb the money and we wouldn't be in this ongoing pattern of carryover requests, continuing on. So that's Erica, Carol, let me know if I missed anything.
That was comprehensive.
Before we move on, let's just get some clarity in terminology so that everyone appreciates what a carryover is.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
And that would help.
Yeah, sure. It's hard. You come out of one meeting where we all kind of know what we're talking about. You forget that maybe other people don't know all these terms. So whenever the organizations under our committee, they get allocated a certain amount of money, they are supposed to budget to spend all of that money in a particular year. If they are unable to spend all that money, they can request to carry over the spending down of that money into the next year. So in this situation, the money is money they were supposed to spend down by the end of 2021, December 31, 2021. They are requesting to carry the money that they can't spend down by then, that they estimate they can't spend down by then, into January through June of 2022. And that is going to be money that they would hold over in addition to awards that we are giving them in 2022. And some of those requests are for small dollar amounts. It depends on what they got in their 2021 award and also what they anticipate not being able to spend down. A couple of them were very large. One was $800,000 that they want to carry forward. Another was like 1.6 million that they want to carry forward. But on the others, the organizations say, well, we're very big and we get, we have a lot of funding, so this isn't a big percentage of our budget. So these are some of the issues that we are kind of dealing with. And obviously there's also the issue of like, the amount that they're allocated is based on county by county expenses. So comparing it to their full budget isn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily give a full picture of like how they can absorb it. So does anybody have questions on what a carryover is? Does that kind of make sense? It literally is just carrying the money over to the next year.
Erica, Carol, I saw you take yourself off mute. Did you want to add anything?
No, just in case there was any other questions or any other specifics, but Erica's got it. So.
Well, I'd like to add something. This is where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion. We are allocating money to one QLSP this year that could have been allocated to others. And if there's a carryover, it means they didn't spend it. And the others who didn't get that money might have spent it. So it's serious business. And the question that Erica Connolly raised in her presentation was, what is serious? Serious means something above 25%. And then you have to put an asterisk by that and say, this is an unusual year. A pandemic year is one in which you'd expect that budgets have to be rearranged because you can't find attorneys to do the work. Clients aren't coming as they were anticipated to come. You budget a year in advance and you don't expect what will happen from a pandemic. You've never been through it before. So carryover is a serious business. In the grant making business, you always look at it, and Tammy, I can see you shaking your head because you know what this means. It means someone hasn't budgeted very well, and other QLSPs have to suffer as a result because that poorly budgeted entity received monies that might have gone elsewhere. We all look at this and take it seriously. The recommendations are generally very well thought out and deliberate, but you should understand this is not just a technicality at all. Banafshe.
Thank you. I think the other aspect of this, Erica did such a great job of summarizing both sides of kind of the discussions. We looked at this because it was a COVID year. We looked at having those carryovers and being more generous with them because of the global, literally, pandemic. What we're really needing to think about now as a subcommittee and as a commission, as a body, we wear both hats. We want to definitely partner with the organizations, and we sympathize with the situations that these organizations are facing, and we want to support the work of the organizations. And at the same time, we wear the hat of oversight and as a regulatory body. So being able to really balance this is where we're starting to question the carryovers, and for how much longer, if long beyond this year, and if this year, how much, as Erica was pointing to, how much would be reasonable. Those dollars are not meant to be reserves. That's not what these funds are for. So really making sure that we get that notice out to the organizations that we can sympathize at a critical time to make sure that their good work continues, and making sure that we're overseeing these funds in the way that which we've been mandated to, frankly. So just wanted to add a few additional points there.
Thank you. Selena, and then Catherine.
I just want to comment that I agree with you, Rich, that this should be taken very seriously in terms of carryover request. But I want to push back on the characterization that it's poor budgeting. I think carryovers are very common, and that's why this body has granted staff authority to approve carryovers up to 25%. There may be, especially for small organizations, one vacancy could cause a carryover if you're having difficulty hiring an attorney or having difficulty replacing somebody who may have left. So, small carryovers I think are really common, and this body has always been very flexible on those. I think what is really an anomaly is the large number of carryovers, the number of organizations, and the high percent and the high dollar amount. And I think that's largely due to COVID, where a lot of organizations were planning multi-year budgets because of the instability of other funding sources. And IOLTA and Equal Access Fund has typically been pretty flexible in terms of filling in the gaps of other more risky funding sources. And I think that organizations very much have heard the message that carryovers are not going to be continued. You won't be able to carry over 40 or 50% into the future as you've had during the pandemic years. But as a leader of an organization myself, when we have carryovers or carryover requests with our funders, it's not been through poor budgeting. It's been through kind of like surprise circumstances. And I would say that not only COVID's impact on people's work and on vacant positions, but also on the thankful availability of other federal funding sources has helped a lot of programs.
Yeah, I agree with that. What we used to look at, and historically on the commission, is the chronics. if one of our grant recipients is chronically carrying over, that makes much more of a difference than if it's a unique circumstance. Certainly the pandemic has made budgeting a real challenge. Catherine.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I really felt like the committee had a really robust, good discussion. It was kind of the beginning of the discussion, and there wasn't just time really to complete that. And I think the way that Bonachet phrased it in terms of we're trying to balance our responsibilities, like be mindful of a pandemic and the program's unique needs, and also look at oversight, is absolutely right. One of the things that we're doing is going back to programs and getting some specific information from them about how are they planning to spend both the carry forward and a grant award, because we all agree that being in the place where there's large carry forwards going forward is not really fulfilling our responsibility or enabling the commission to ensure that people are appropriately served. So from my perspective, we want to appreciate kind of the time we're going to be taking to be thoughtful about this, and kind of appreciate your patience with us not having a full recommendation at this meeting, but I think it will result in a much better decision and clarity to the programs about what can happen going forward. So thank you. And I apologize. I actually have to take a call at 2 o'clock, so I'm going to leave in just a few minutes, but I hope to be back within the hour. Thank you.
Zahira.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the same comments as Bonachet and as Catherine. You know, there was really a robust discussion and lots of different pieces. You know, one of the things I just want to say to some of what all of this is about that we're still sort of parsing through is that for some organizations, it might have been a surprise, but for other organizations, they're making an intentional business decision. And what we're trying to connect is the business decision that they're making versus the responsibility of the commission and the resources and the timing in which the resources need to be used. And so to the point in terms of like the reserve issue, that's part of the tension here, is that having a reserve is something where a lot of organizations may choose to have one because it helps to smooth out your years. But in terms of the utilization of the money, the funds that we're imparting are funds where we're looking at utilization in a more immediate way, rather than maybe using it 2 or 3 years down the road when you've had some funding changes that flow. So really appreciated the conversation. Looking forward to having further discussion. And again, thank you for your just flexibility with us as we kind of sort through all of this.
Thank you. Will?
I was just wanted to make sure I understood the motion before us is to approve the staff recommendations and then defer to the committee the final decision on the rest of the carryover requests. Is that correct?
No.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, we're asking, we are recommending that the commission approve the carryover requests and budget revisions that the staff recommended approval for. The rest of them, we're not asking anything from the commission at this point, other than, as my fellow committee members have noted, your patience and flexibility with us in December. What we're instead going to do is have a working group that staff is going to work with to get additional information and kind of flesh out these issues, because as we've discussed, there are, as Zahira pointed out, tensions between what the organizations want to do to sort of smooth things out, but we are already trying to smooth things out on our ends, and we want them to spend the money in a particular fashion. And if they can't, we'd like it to be redistributed more timely. So that's what that was more of an informational piece rather than requesting anything in particular.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. The plan and the balancing act sounds like it's going to be plenty difficult, because working with the COVID organization, I know the pandemic isn't over, and the impacts and the fallout to the economy are going to continue. So it's very difficult, especially when you consider the emergency funding that some of these organizations may have been able to take advantage of, or the PPP loans and all that, and how to accommodate where we can appropriately the business case. I I really appreciate the conversation, and it sounds excellent. So I have no questions. Can we motion to approve it?
And let me just add procedurally, so it's all clear. You'll be approving the ones that it's not deferring to the working group. That working group will get more information, and then we'll bring back a recommendation to the commission at the December commission meeting. It's not going to go back through the committee because there's not another eligibility committee meeting.
Any further discussion on this? All right. Duan, you want to take it from there?
Sure. Erica, do you have a motion to share, or is there a motion?
Sure. I don't know if you want to make any edits to this.
So moved.
Bob is so moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Great, I'll do roll
Second
call.
from Louise.
Rhinus,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Vanarelli,
Yes.
Aglagi,
Yes.
Al-Saraf,
Yes.
Ball, Fightmaster,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Blakemore, Bashelli,
Yes.
Connolly,
Yes.
Friedman, Galkin, Iskin,
Yes.
Cruz. Diana, you still on? Lee,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Meeker,
Yes.
Plantold,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you.
We also have one more recommendation, which was our committee this morning. We discussed and passed a motion to recommend that the commission approve the budget submissions for 2022. And we didn't see any concerns as far as we're aware. I'll defer that to Erica Carroll if there's other things that I'm missing on this. I'll let her give some of the details on that.
Yeah, on the 2022 budgets, any issues that arose in those budgets were handled at the committee level. So, the committee discussed some late submissions, some questions about capital additions that were included in budget proposals, which were resolved. They also addressed questions about possibly non-qualifying activities. So there was discussion about social work and impact litigation and advocacy work type activities, which will also, I believe, be discussed through the Rules Committee this coming year. And then they also look at things like deviations from recommended expense ratios for personnel and non-personnel costs. So all of that was addressed at their prior meeting, and then staff has followed up with organizations that had more minor administrative updates that needed to be made. And so staff had recommended to the committee, and the committee also adopted that recommendation that all 103 budgets be approved for 2022.
Erica, you mentioned the Rules Committee issues. Did you expect the Rules Committee to be dealing with late filed applications?
So this is Erica Connolly. One of the things that has come up a couple of times is the standard by which we need to assess whether late submissions ought to be considered. For example, when we talk about late audits, there has to be a showing of extraordinary circumstances. We don't have a very clear standard such as that for things like late submissions. And this is kind of an ongoing discussion that our committee has. So we would like the Rules Committee to kind of start looking into whether there's like a standard that we can rely on, and that organizations have notice about what it is that they need to show to explain why they're late, and whether there's a grace period or what the repercussions will be. Right now it's, all or nothing. So that can be kind of a harsh result, but may be appropriate. So these are some of the things that we have dealt with, but haven't come to a resolution ourselves, and we think needs to be vetted more broadly with the Rules Committee.
Excellent. Any questions about this? If not, let's put the resolution up.
So moved with recusal for Bay Area Legal Aid.
How are we handling recusals this time around?
That's a good question.
Once you do roll call, you can just recuse at that time.
All right, well, I think that as a housekeeping matter, I ought to have mentioned that in advance. Recusals are typically required in the event that you are approving a grant or, as in this case, a budget for any grant recipient or support center with which you have an affiliation. We used to pass around when we met in person a list of recusals at first so as to make it clear from the outset what that would be. But in the event that we are voting on a budget or on a grant that it relates to an entity with which you are affiliated, please notify Dwan after the meeting is over, and we'll record a recusal on your behalf. Thanks, Chris. All right, we have a second on this in discussion.
I will second.
This is Joe Lee. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right list. Is this the 2021 IOLTA grant budget revision and carryover requests that was included in the materials?
That we voted on in the previous motion.
That's what I thought. Okay, so what I need to.
Erica, do you have it quickly? You can maybe share screen.
I'll need to pull it up.
Yeah, it's actually not on the, at least I'm not seeing it on the meeting agenda website. Am I missing it?
No, you're right.
It's not 6B.
No, it is an agenda item, but what you're now seeing on the screen was not included in the package that you could access through the website. At least I couldn't find it.
This spreadsheet is available on the website now.
Okay.
I can't say when it was put up, but I think it was put up within the last, I saw it yesterday at least when I was reviewing.
Erica, can you slide it so we can see the bottom of the list too, or see all of it?
If you hadn't had a chance to review it, does it make sense for me to email it out and then we vote on this maybe towards the end of the meeting? Would that make everybody feel more comfortable?
I'd recommend that.
Okay. Erica, Carol, can you forward it to me? So then I can just forward it on really quickly to the commission. And the reason why it was posted late is because they were not actually, with the carryover budget review request, they weren't due until a few days ago. So Erica, Carol in our office couldn't process it until very recently. So there might have been just a lag time from when you checked the website, but we'll get that emailed out now, and then we'll just take that vote at the end.
And by way of clarification, I think I heard, this is Joe Lee again, and I apologize for a newbie question. I think I heard that recusal is appropriate when a commission member individually has a relationship or involvement with an organization. I'm just wondering if for like a law firm member like myself, if I know that a partner of mine is on the board of one of these organizations, I gather it is not practice to recuse in that instance.
Not unless you feel that there's a conflict. Usually the conflicts or the recusal is if you're sitting on the board of one of our grants or perhaps there or in recent years you worked there. If it's a little bit more of, it's not that, then we can work with you offline. Brady and I can look into the situation, but what you just described is not something typical unless you feel a need to.
Right. Okay. So there's some judgment involved.
Joe, Brady's done some good work on conflicts, and it's pretty direct. It has to be fairly direct.
Right. So I think is the idea then that we're going to circulate I'm sorry if I'm speaking over somebody. If someone's going to circulate the list and then we'll indicate following this call what organizations we're each individually recusing ourselves from?
The list is what you're approving for the budgets. If there's an organization that's on that list that you would like to recuse yourself, you can either do it when I do roll call or else you can email me after the meeting and we'll get that memorialized in the action summary.
Thank you.
In other words, you can vote on 102 of the 103.
Right.
Brady, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, it would be preferable for you to do it before you vote. So we know how to characterize your vote, and it's not interpreted as a vote for or against one of the organizations with which you have a conflict. And Rich got it right as far as recusal being required. It's really a direct connection. You devoting substantial volunteer time or having a personal relationship with the organization or serving on its board. That said, if for any reason you feel that you are unable to be impartial with a particular organization, then you should recuse yourself.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call on this. Is that what you want to do now, Duan, on this issue? Or
so I just forward everyone the list. So we could either do it now, or if you feel more comfortable, we could do it at towards the end of the meeting when you've had a chance to review it.
Let's push this to the back so that folks have a chance to look at that list and feel more comfortable with it. We'll move on to Elizabeth's item next.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Hahn, Program Manager with the Office of Access and Inclusion.
I was going to tell a little story before you.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. I just want, especially for the new members, to understand what you're about to hear. And it's similar to something that happened to me many years ago. I took my daughter Hillary to a professional hockey game when she was 15. And while we're watching the game, she got hit in the head with a hockey puck. And she turned to me and she said to me, "Does this happen at every hockey match?" And I said to her, "No, you wouldn't believe it, but this is a first. I've never seen anything like this. You could go to hockey games for the rest of your life and you will never get hit in the head with a hockey puck again. The odds are astronomical that that will never occur." In any case, overstating it as I've just done, you're about to hear of a complaint. Kim and I were scratching our heads, as I am now, about when was the last time we ever heard anything like this. So this is an anomaly, to be sure. And with that, Elizabeth, take it away.
Never.
Is a personnel matter that should be discussed outside of the public view?
No.
No.
Thank you, Bob.
So the State Bar, we received a complaint from a person seeking to receive legal services from one of our grantees in March of 2020. Due to various challenges, not due to any part to our grantee, which is Legal Services of Northern California, the complaint took longer to resolve than usual, and we were not able to resolve the complaint within 90 days, though it has since now been resolved. So we're bringing this complaint to the Commission's attention because State Bar Rule 3.692 requires staff provide a written report to the complainant, grantee, and Commission if a complaint is not resolved within this 90-day window. So the report is contained in the meeting materials, so I won't go over the details of that. Also, because it's been resolved, we don't think that it's useful at this time to go over the details of the complaint. But I do want to note that both the complainant and grantee have 30 days from receipt of the report to provide a written response. And LISNIC, Legal Services of Northern California, provided the response yet, and you should have received that yesterday or earlier this week. And so in response to LISNIC, staff staff, admits that we should have provided a copy of the complaint to them immediately. And we should have handled the complaint more timely. That is definitely staff's fault that we didn't move this along more timely. And we do regret that there are inaccuracies in the report. I do want to note that staff, we do take these complaints very seriously, and do think that it is within the commission's purview to review complaints, both as good stewards of the funding to ensure compliance with trust fund requirements, and also for public protection. So we do want to address some of the criticisms in LISNIC's response of the complaint process during the codification process with the Rules Committee. So the complainant has until November 25th to submit a written response. We do not expect him to submit additional information. So absent additional information from the complainant, our staff recommendation is for the commission to dismiss the complaint because LISNIC has met trust fund requirements in this situation.
We did not receive the LISNIC response until just recently. I know it's a long response, and I don't know that all of you have had a chance to look it over, but in any case, if you do have some comments or questions about this matter, now's the time to raise them. All right, let's start with you, Bob.
So staff is recommending the commission dismiss this, but if we dismiss it now and later the complainant between now and the deadline complains or disputes or says, no, I'm not satisfied. I mean, can we just defer action until the December meeting so that the timeline for the complainant to figuratively appeal has run out? If we dismiss it now and the complainant says, no, I'm upset, I don't like it, I disagree, we've got to reinstitute this I'm sorry, it just makes us look like a rush to judgment to get it off our plate, as opposed to deferring this till December.
That is definitely one option, is to defer to December. I do believe the motion has language in it that should we receive additional information from the complainant, then that information would be shared with the commission with additional recommendations. So I leave it to the commission to just decide how to handle that.
Zahira.
Thank you so much, and thank you also for that summary. So in looking at these letters, I think one of the things that I was concerned with was LISNIC. There was a big shift in the tone of their letters from August to November, and in November there's this discussion in terms of questioning the Trust Fund Commission's authority to even be reviewing this. And so I know that you, Elizabeth, kind of like mentioned that in your summary, and I know that part of this is going to go to the Rules Committee in terms of handling in the past, but I do wonder about that piece of kind of lifting up for the community, like what is our authority and what isn't our authority, because comments like this, especially when it comes wrapped in the tone in which this letter is wrapped in, has a certain quality to it. Mm-hmm. And the more we kind of let things like this sort of just out there in terms of kind of a precedential nature in terms of the response to the commission, I think that's what I'm most concerned with is the actual tone of this letter and some of the statements that are in it. Thank you.
Zahira, is your comment focused on LISNIC or on the complainant?
It's focused on LISNIC.
Okay, thanks. Christina.
Thank you. I agree with Zahira. I thought that the most recent letter, frankly, was very well written. And I understand completely where they're coming from. I mean, frankly, it sounded like a problem client that they bent over backwards to try to help. And then, frankly, we didn't respond to them appropriately. And so they felt that they don't have our support, which is not true at all. They serve so many people. And I feel like here, we dropped the ball and we failed them. For them to come away feeling like this, and clearly for their staff to come away feeling like this, that they don't have our support, I think we need to do something. I mean, these are so rare. I said in one of our recent meetings, I'd never even heard of this process before. So it doesn't come up very often, but I think we need to tighten something up to make sure that we don't make these organizations feel like this, that we're not, that we don't have their back when they are clearly doing a really good job.
We have to look out for those hockey pucks, as rare as they are. Pam?
My comment was to the complainant. And over the course of the pandemic, I've just heard a misuse and a play of words. And to me, if he was making the claim that he had a disability, that should have afforded him the right to not to complete an intake process or form, that wouldn't be the case. And if that were the case, you should have stayed up front. This is what my condition is and how can you help me? So I didn't appreciate hearing, to me, was a misuse of the term. And to use that as an excuse not to comply, which is the intake form determines if we can help you or not. And if you're not willing to comply with the minimum requirement, to me, I thought that was inappropriate for that claim to be made when there are people with real disabilities, that if you need assistance, you ask for it, but not bully your way into getting something that is not a normal process.
Thank you. Justice Murray?
What was that submission date or deadline for the complainant? December what?
November 25th.
Oh, November 25th. Okay. I thought I heard December 25th, but maybe I was thinking about Christmas. I don't know. So I guess I'm kind of thinking along the lines Bob was. Why are we doing this now as opposed to December?
Sure. So I believe when we initially drafted the report, that I don't think there was a December meeting on the calendar, and so we were trying to get it in before year end. But now that we do have a December meeting, that is definitely an option the commission can take.
I get it now. Well, I think Bob's observation that somebody might view this as a rush to judgment is something we should be concerned about. And I think it is advisable to postpone action on this until the time for him to respond is expired. So we do have a meeting in December. So I think that would be my advice.
Let's see, I'm trying to go in order of hands popping up on me. Justice Murray, was that it for you?
Yes, thank you.
Dwan?
Yeah, I just want to respond to Christina and I believe some others' response that, it is definitely concerning when one of our grantees submits a letter like this and obviously very displeased. I think the staff acknowledges that we could have moved more swiftly on this and perhaps have been within the 90 days. With that said, though, this was a complainant where there were communication challenges. And, every complaint that comes through our office, I do want to say on behalf of Elizabeth and I, we take it very seriously. Obviously, our grantees are amazing, but we don't want to rest on the laurels of a grantee with a stellar reputation. Every client that comes through that has a complaint, we do take it very seriously. And we wanted to give proper consideration to the complaint. And so we wanted to try to give that person an opportunity to present the story. So there were communication challenges. Could we have done it more swiftly? Absolutely. And this is a lesson learned. In response to the letter saying that this is outside of the commission's purview, we disagree with that. And I did ask Brady to look into that a little bit closer to see, OGC has an opinion on that. And Brady, I don't know if this is the appropriate time now for you to share the analysis.
Actually, I'm not sure if Brady's still here.
Okay.
I know he had a conflict.
Just asked to be promoted.
He's asking to be promoted.
Oh.
Here and Eric and Joe and then Justice Murray. We'll get to you in just a second. Let's get Brady on board. Oh, and
Actually,
Kim's got her
Rich,
hand up.
yeah, I wanted to let you know that Kim is texting me. She's having challenges with her video, but wants to also be recognized to
Got
speak.
it. I see the palm.
Great.
Brady?
I was kicked off and I was having some trouble getting back in, but I think I heard most of it. I was kicked off right after Christina finished her comments. setting aside the valid concerns about clarity and timing of communications between staff, I don't think that anything in the record or in the report indicates that the State Bar or the Commission believes that it has the authority to force any grantee to serve any particular client, other than, of course, ensuring that they obey anti-discrimination laws. However, the Commission is charged with ensuring that all grantees have quality control procedures, which are approved by the State Bar. The State Bar rules provide that we use the ABA model standards for the provision of free legal services. And those standards, while for the most part, take the form of best practices. So it would be rare to find a grantee or an applicant ineligible for failing to, meet everything in those standards. The standards do have, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe I found it was 4.1. One of the standards deals with intake process, and this complaint was about intake process. So of course it is within our purview to investigate a complaint about intake, see what happened, see if there are best practices under the ABA guidelines that could have avoided that. And in this case, perhaps too much time went by and too much back and forth, but we had a difficult complainant who was unable to submit a written complaint himself. So we gave him the reasonable accommodation of trying to take that over the phone. So that in and of itself made it much more difficult, and investigated that, found that there was no basis, and therefore recommended dismissing the complaint. I think it would be fine to wait until December, but I don't think necessary, since the rules provide that once we've made the report, we can make or staff is to make a recommendation and you can act on it. And you could act with the proviso that if some more information is submitted, that will be considered. So if there are any other specific questions I can answer, but that was sort of our office's take.
All right, we've got 4 more coming, so there may be some specific questions here.
Thank you. And thank you, Brady, for that discussion. And I just wanted to clarify my comment from earlier. Yeah, I think that the communication back to the broader community, if this issue is one that we think, I know this has been very rare in all of those different pieces, is more about the authority of the commission to be able to review these types of issues, because that's what the language I was concerned with the letter. The other piece in terms of the letters that I thought was really interesting had to do with this issue that it seems like the staff faced as well in terms of communication issues. I think there was reference to auditory complaints, and even in the nature of some of what I'm reviewing, I just wonder as well too if there's an opportunity to have conversations with the broader community in terms of how those are managed, because those individuals, even if it might be complicated having conversations with them, I mean, there is some reference in here that suggests that there was something that the other side may have been able to do to help mitigate some of this at an earlier stage. So I know that we're not diving in too deeply because it's been resolved, and I appreciate the resolution of it, but some of what has been being indicated in the letter, I would like us to not just sort of like live there as these statements that have been made, but if there are statements that have been made in terms of what it's sensed in terms of what our authority is and how organizations treat individuals who have communication issues or who have auditory issues, if there's something for us to resolve or at least make some sort of have some sort of discussion about, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, I am also troubled by the allegation that we somehow lacked authority to look at this. And I think we somehow need to make clear that we do have authority if that's our position. But I have another process question. I agree with those folks who have said that if we're going to give the complainant a further chance to respond, that that maybe we should defer this vote till December. But I guess I have a question here about, do we need to give the complainant a further chance to respond? I mean,
The
haven't we?
state bar rule does allow a complainant 30 days to provide additional information after he receives the report. So
To be clear on that, it's 30 days from the report, not 30 days from the determination by the commission to either dismiss or make some other judgment. It's the report that triggers the 30 days.
And when was the report?
about October 25th or so. So because the deadline is November 25th.
Joe Lee.
Thank you. So I'm kind of struggling with this issue. It's my first issue like this with the commission, and maybe if it's like a hockey puck, it'll be my last. I'm thinking about how I would address this issue if I chair another board at the Disability Rights Legal Center. So when we do the recusal later, you'll hear me recuse us to them. And if I got an issue like this that came in and it seems to me that it presents 2 or 3 issues. What is our authority to review this type of complaint? What do we think of the complaint on the merits? And what lessons are to be learned about how it was handled internally so that going forward, we have better processes, or should we have better processes in place? And those are all significant issues. And so if I saw something like this come my way, what I would do, and I want to raise the question whether we should do it here, would be to form a subcommittee to really study it and then come to the full commission with a recommendation as to how to proceed. Because I'm not sure it's realistic to expect every member of the commission to dive into this in the level of detail that I think would be appropriate. And I know that we're proceeding in an open forum, and I'm not suggesting that we do anything, behind closed doors, but instead that we, I guess my question is whether it would be appropriate to form a subcommittee that would study it in more detail, including analysis of the full commission's authority to investigate this type of allegation. And then at our next meeting in December, have that subcommittee present a recommendation as to how to proceed. So that would be my preferred way to handle this.
So the staff is recommending that the criticisms of the complaint process and those other issues be dealt with during the codification process. So the rules committee would review as part of their work plan. Instead of
I followed that, Elizabeth. So you're saying that as to that one piece as to whether, is it the piece as to how it was handled internally, or is it the piece as to what our authority is?
Both.
Okay.
Because the rules committee is looking at all of the decision points that are made by the commission, whether they're in the rules or have just been part of office practice over the last 30 years, and codifying them and making them a part of our the rules. And so we thought that because this derives from a current state bar rule, that would be the appropriate venue to further investigate, study, and then make a recommendation to the committee.
There's some confusion, I think, there, at least evidenced by Joe's question that in my mind I wanted to be clear on. We have the obligation, the responsibility as a commission to make a determination with respect to this complaint. But if you look at the remedies, at the possibilities of what we as the commission can do, they're quite limited. We can either dismiss the complaint or take funding action against Lisnick. Those are the only 2 things. We're not adjudicating the merits of this complaint. We have very limited tools available to us, but we have the obligation of making a determination. It's quite different than ruling the merits of this, and I don't think we ought to be in those weeds, in my judgment. Justice Murray?
I guess I understand what Brady said about staff giving us the report, and we're free to act on it at this time. But I just don't understand why we need to, and I think it has an appearance of making a decision without all the potential evidence. It's almost like you're asking a judge to rule on a motion before the motions, the schedule of all the motions is expired. And I just don't see why we shouldn't wait and see if he is actually going to respond. And then if he does, we will be informed by what his response is, and the decision can be made with that in mind, or we'll be in the same place next month we are in now with no response and sort of a clear path on how we want to deal with this. The other thing that occurs to me is that perhaps, I don't know if it's possible, but I'll suggest maybe some kind of informal conversation with Lisnick that might sort of enlighten them on our perspective of the commission's purview on these complaints, but also inform them that, you know, the matter is going to be taken up in a more formal setting with the Rules Committee as we go through the codification process. I do think that's the appropriate way to do this. I don't think we should have a separate subcommittee for a hockey puck situation. I think we can inject this situation into the Rules Committee process, looking at the overall picture. To me, that seems to be the most efficient way to handle this. But those are my two comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Murray. We can definitely follow up informally with Lisnick. We did let them know. It did invite them to the meeting to provide public comment if they so wished, and did let them know that what our comments would be in response to theirs. And so we'll follow up after the meeting to just reiterate that. And just also, we also let the complainant know that if he wished to join today's meeting to make public comment, that he was also welcome.
It's good to know. Thank you, Elizabeth. Will?
So actually, I feel like I wanted to hear what Brady had to say before I said anything. Can I go after Brady?
Brady, over to you.
You're on mute, Brady.
Just been doing this for 18 months. I should have that down. Just a few things to add based on the discussion. I think, and Dan and Duan and Elizabeth can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that the way that we came up with this, let's have a decision now that takes effect if no further information comes, was partly because there was a communication early in the agenda writing process that indicated that he wasn't going to pursue this. Is that correct?
That's right.
So we took that at face value. Again, this person hasn't been completely consistent, and looked at what the rule said, which is that he has 30 days. So we didn't want to say, well, he can't change his mind, but so that was sort of part of it. And I think it's fine one way or the other. I think if we're more worried, nothing here has shown there to be any merit to his complaint. So if our concern is getting this done for LSNC, if our concern is that they've been dragged along too much, that might be a reason for acting now, because through the entire investigation there's been no basis. So even if something is submitted, which is his right, but there's no indication that he would have anything new to say. I will leave up to the commission if we can have a motion to decide now or later. Just on the sort of, I agree this is something best for rules. I don't see any need to respond. A grantee sending us a letter doesn't establish any sort of precedent, it's very clear that they were angry, but it's a little internally inconsistent. On the one hand, they're saying we have no right to look into this. On the other hand, they're asked that we be very clear that we're making a decision on the merits. So they do want us to make a decision on the merits of the complaint. So, I think that the thing to do here is to, resolve this complaint and then go through the process with rules and nothing urgent there. But the lessons learned as far as being much quicker with these communications with grantees when they come up. And the last point, sorry, was that Rich said what our remedies were, and while it's true that strictly speaking, it's dismiss or punish them by taking away funding, but there is another aspect, and that's in our if something came up and they weren't meeting the ABA standards and there was room to improve, we certainly, with our 3-year site visit, we do a lot of counseling as far as how to better comport with the standards that doesn't amount to putting anybody's funding in jeopardy. So there is, if we found some sort of room for improvement, it's certainly within our purview and our practice, in fact, to counsel our grantees on those issues.
Well, I think there's a peripheral issue here before we get back to you, Ella. You just raised it, Brady. I mean, the complainant has other forums or fora in which he can pursue whatever remedies he wishes. Were we to go to the extent that Lisnick wants us to go, we might be establishing some sort of impediment to any further remedies that this complainant would like to seek in a different forum. So I think we ought to be careful and focused on what the limitations are on what we can do, what we are obligated to on the one hand, and how we can respond. We have to be careful not to limit the rights of the complainant in any way by honoring this request from Lisnick, which is so justifiable in the view of many. So I think we ought to be thoughtful about it.
I'm sorry, how would we limit?
I don't want to have the commission in the position of adjudicating the full merits of the complaint.
Okay.
Let's assume that we did that. Could that adjudication be used as a defense in some action that the complainant would take elsewhere for malpractice, for example?
I don't think so. All we're saying is that we don't find that he violated program requirements.
Right.
We don't adjudicate malpractice.
I thought that Gary's letter went further, or at least his request went to, could we do more? And I think we are really limited in what we can do.
And the rule just says dismiss. So I was happy with the language of the motion that said that our investigation found no basis or no merit for the complaint. That's true. Our investigation didn't find that. We could also just say that the complaint is dismissed.
Will, back to you. And we've got 4 hands raised, and I don't want to take up the full balance of our time on this issue, so we will have to bring it to a close soon. We'll go through the 5 that are raised, and hopefully that'll be the end of it. Will?
Thank you. I will endeavor to be very quick. First, I thought the report was excellent. Thank you, staff. It covered everything. I feel comfortable with the recommendation. I did just want to emphasize that I think one of the reasons I was appointed to the commission was to provide the perspective of a client. And in this instance, I recognize how difficult the intake process can be as a client, to have to try and ask for help. And then all they want you to do is, oh, can you fill out this form? Or can you just fill out the form? And I'm like, well, but I don't even know if you can help me. Can we talk as human beings first? And it can be a demeaning process, to be frank. And so the importance of thoughtful consideration around complaints, and it looks like it was done here. Everything was done, and it looked like the complaint process actually brought about some further action. So I just want to express my appreciation for staff for following up with it, and to emphasize with the other commission members how important the process is, and hearing from clients on this matter is important to me personally, because if it can be improved, whether it's LS&T, where they are obviously doing great work, or some other organization. I think we should always be open to learning and growing and improving the process. So that is all I wanted to share, and thank you for the time.
Banafshe.
Very quickly. And then I want to also mention that at this point, Kim is no longer, her hand is up. She needs to be unmuted. There's a lot of technical stuff going on and she'd like to be heard. I am in the camp with Justice Murray, and I'm noticing in the chats, Judge Seligman, that this really is premature. We should allow for, regardless of how hockey puckish this might be, for the process, regardless of what we might think or not think. The process is the process, and we should honor the process. So allow for the 30 days to lapse, and see if whether or not this individual has any additional say on the matter. And definitely, I understand the issue of optics. Oh, I see Kim has joined us. Welcome. I understand the issue of optics and concur that this really needs to be handled by the Rules Committee. That's what the committee was brought together for. It's for these types of issues and codification. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Kim, as she's been waiting patiently.
Thanks for putting up with my technological challenges. I think the focus here is whether the complaint process was handled by the State Bar, whether the complaint process was handled thoroughly and with integrity. And I think that took place. However, there was a problem with the time frame. And then there were factual errors. That doesn't dismiss the fact that it was done with integrity. I think that I want to correct one statement made by somebody as that LISNIC should have provided a reasonable accommodation. And first of all, the client never asserted that he had a disability, in which case it's not appropriate for an attorney typically to ask them if they want an accommodation. Yet LISNIC, in fact, did provide multiple accommodations. And I don't think that LISNIC needs to be schooled in how to work with clients like this. And there's probably not a grant recipient, IOLTA recipient, that even needs training in this. I think they deal with it all the time based on my experience. I'd really like to move this forward. And one of the reasons is because I think that in this instance, the State Bar, despite that it started out on the right foot, there were a bunch of problems. And I think that we need to move this forward, look at the language of the resolution. And I strongly feel that if you go back to LISNIC and tell them they need to know how to work with clients like this, would be a pretty bruising experience and not justified. If you get into the weeds and read the record, you will see that they spent an inordinate amount of time working with this client. They went beyond the call of duty. The client was extremely abusive. And so I think we should move this forward. And if something happens between now and the 25th of November, then it will come back to us.
Jolie.
So this is a hard issue in my mind. I agree with those who think that we should take it up at the December meeting, and it sounds like the Rules Committee is going to be reviewing this in the interim, and then we'll be presenting a recommendation. So it's not quite the subcommittee or special committee that I was suggesting, but I would very much like to have their input before I vote on this. And I guess part of what's troubling me about this is that I don't know enough of what happened here because I haven't seen the underlying record, and if I want to exercise my fiduciary duty to decide this on a full record, and I'm not able to do that right now because I just haven't had time to dig into it, and I'm not even sure all the materials have been made available. But part of what's troubling me here is the tone of this letter from the legal, I guess it's Lisnick. And I do wonder if we need to respond. I mean, they're making a direct statement that we lack authority to investigate this. That's their position. And it's stated rather strongly. And I wonder if we should be responding to that. If it's our conclusion that we have that authority, I would think we would want to respond to them and say, we have, assuming the ultimate decision is to dismiss the complaint, I would like to see a letter go back to them and say, we have dismissed the complaint, but we do not agree with your characterization of our authority here.
Okay, we're going to need a motion to table or not to table eventually, but let's go to Zahira and then Dwan and Diana.
Thank you. I just wanted to just respond to the disability piece, because I think we either get into the merits of this or we don't. But the letter does talk about perceiving his tone as intended to intimidate the other participants in the call, but it may also evidence his auditory problems. And then they go on to say how they proceeded to treat him as someone who had a disability and that they were working to accommodate the disability. So I do wanted to make sure, like, if we're going to go down the road of talking about that particular piece, then I think that's probably a different discussion in terms of parsing it through. But for this particular piece, like, my main concern is exactly what Joe just mentioned, which is the concern in terms of the tone of the letter. And I know that, when having been a litigator, there's lots in terms of that tone, and there are lots of statements that you make when you're in certain positions. And so I really do like the idea of having some sort of letter go back to them, which may resolve the issue. But kind of getting into the merits of it is, I thought, something we weren't discussing. But if we are going to get into the merits of it, there are some concerning things that are in the letters, and having the complainant have the full time seems what's appropriate. And I think as we kind of get to the point of making a motion, I don't know if we could possibly do a motion that kind of includes both of those pieces, a letter back to Lisnick, and then continuing the piece in terms of the time, I guess, after having the time period fully pass and then coming back in December. And then also, once that happens, having a letter back to Lisnick that reiterates the fact that we do have authority in these cases, and kind of wrapping this up. But thank you.
Dwan.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we need to respond to set the record. I mean, Lisnick was firm in that they wanted to preserve the record, and that's why they submitted that piece so that we could post it and send it all to you. I think it's probably important that we preserve our record, and perhaps that's something Brady and I can work on, and Elizabeth. And then I don't know if it's worthwhile. Is it just a letter, or Elizabeth and I are the ones that have been, or Elizabeth, I should say, in contact with Lisnick. I don't know if it's appropriate, or whether Rich and Kim at this point want to intervene and communicate with Lisnick. That's an option. When Brady, Elizabeth, and I had met earlier a couple of weeks ago to draft the memo, the complainant did say that they were satisfied with the services at that point. So we wanted to move swiftly for a resolution for Lisnick to kind of nip it in the bud, because we knew it was causing the organization a lot of anxiety. So that was where it was coming from. I do think we took it on the face value. So the lesson learned, and I agree with Judge Sullivan and Justice Murray that let's defer to December. That meeting that's scheduled for 2 hours, we're going to need to tack on another hour. So my suggestion is just make a full 4 hours. We probably won't need it, so that we can cover everything. We already have it on the books. And so we're already going to that inconvenience. Then maybe for optics, we shelve it to December would be my recommendation.
All right, I want to reel this in if we can. So Justice Murray, and then Bob, and then let's have a motion.
Yeah, earlier when I suggested an informal meeting or conversation with Lisnick, I think I did have in mind, and maybe I should have been more specific, that there would be commission members involved with that meeting. It wouldn't just be staff. And I was thinking that would be a softer way to communicate or make our record than sending a letter back. I don't think that we should be in the, I know a lot of us are lawyers. You write a letter, you respond with a letter, and then it gets, it snowballs. I'd rather, if we could think of a strategic way to just sort of smooth this over informally with Lisnick at this point. And I don't know that we want to really take any positions in writing about our purview when we're going to take some of this back through the rules committee process. And I guess it's possible that a letter could sort of paint us into a position that couldn't be changed later down the road. That's possibility, probably not likely, but just something I think we can avoid by not writing a letter and trying to sort of address this informally and smooth it over with Lisnick. And so we and they can go back about our business as it was before all this unfortunate situation took place. On my recommendation for delaying it, I just perceive our complainant here as being challenged and erratic. And if a decision got made, he got wind of it, I could see a situation where he's like, oh, I'm not taking that. They gave me 30 days. And then all of a sudden he sends us something he wasn't even intending to send. On the other hand, he does have apparently some challenges that may be of a nature of some disability. And so we should probably give him as much time as he's entitled to respond. And so those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Bob.
So I think our chairs and council and staff can come up with a plan. I don't think we need to make a vote on whether to send a letter or have so-and-so communicate by phone or whatever. It's just like you folks at the executive committee level and staff ought to handle that. That said, I move that we continue this item to the December meeting, not table it. We continue it to the December meeting.
Second.
I don't think we need to vote if we're not taking action in terms of dismissing it.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Bob's motion's on the table. Let's have some comments. Duan's is that we may not need to take a vote on this. Kim, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, I really like Justice Murray's comment about trying to have an informal discussion with Lisnick, and just as I think to see how that will work, the idea of putting a position in writing when we're not really sure what the position might be after rules looks at it, I think is an important consideration. So I do think having a discussion with Lisnick could be potentially helpful. I'm troubled by pushing this to December, given the strong letter from the executive director, but I can see what's behind that. I think maybe a communication from staff as to why we're moving it to that date might be helpful. And so I would support that. I think it's a cleaner approach. It's not my preferred approach, but I think it's a cleaner approach. And I do think there needs to be a conversation with Lisnick.
Brady, you had your hand up. It's withdrawn, but did you want to?
Well, sure. I just wanted to make sure that the expectations are that we all have the same expectation, and that is that at the next meeting we will vote on whether to dismiss or not. I guess the next step, if we did not dismiss, would be the informal conference. And then discussion or delegating the decision of how to communicate that, as well as our, I could write the 3 bullet points right now regarding our current authority to look into these issues and whether we want to do that by letter or phone. As far as the process and looking at the rules, that is something the Rules Committee will be doing as part of its larger work. So that's not going to be anything that happens between now and December. So I just wanted to be clear on that for everybody.
I think that the Bob's motion's on the table. Well, let's take the word table out of it. Bob's motion to continue this matter until the December meeting is before us. And I think we need to take a vote on that. We have a roll call, please.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. Rhinus,
Yes.
Savage? Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Vanarelli,
Yes.
Oglagi,
Yes.
Asaraf,
Yes.
Ball, Fightmaster,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Blakemore, Bushelli,
Yes.
Connolly,
Yes.
Friedman, Galkin, Iskin,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Meeker,
Yes.
Clantold,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
It's unanimous
Thank you,
too. That's
Elizabeth.
important.
All right, let's move on to the HP homelessness prevention grants. It is now 2:54, so let's try to get through this with Chris and Jim.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is maybe I should let Jim go first, but my name is Chris McConkey. I'm an acting program supervisor with the Office of Access and Inclusion, and I'm the coordinator for the Homelessness Prevention Funds Committee. And Jim is our committee chair. Jim, I'm prepared to give a staff report on how both the HP3 formula and competitive grants are coming along, but would you like to say anything at the outset?
No, go ahead with the report.
Okay, so this is actually pretty brief because the HP Funds Committee is going to be delivering a rather substantive report plus funding recommendations to the full commission at its meeting in December. So this is just to let you know where the committee's at in its process. So for the, as a refresher for everyone, this whole report will take maybe like 4 minutes. So as a refresher for everybody and maybe new information from some of our newer commissioners, there was an authorizing statute for this, for what we're calling the Homelessness Prevention 3 formula and competitive grants. And that statute was the State Budget Act of 2021. The State Budget Act of 2021 authorized a third round of homelessness prevention legal services grants. It is about $40 million in the most recent State Budget Act, and we're expecting another $40 million over the next 2 years. So it's $80 million total over 3 years. And it provides that after admin costs, 75% of those funds will go to statutorily eligible nonprofits via formula awards, which means that if they meet the funding, the statutory requirements, their award amount, and they apply for the grant, their award amount is determined by a formula. And then the other 25% will go up by a competitive request for proposal process. So on August 13th, the commission delegated authority to the Homelessness Prevention Funds Committee to approve the grantees for these Homelessness Prevention 3, round 3, HP3 grantees, and delegated authority to staff to approve their budgets. And then for the competitive grants, the RFP grants, it delegated authority to the committee to adopt the scoring rubric and to staff to score the applications in consultation with the committee. But the commission retains authority to approve those competitive awards, which is on the commission's agenda for December 13th. So just a quick update on both of those processes, starting with the formula grants. There were 75 applicants for formula funding, 61 qualified legal services projects and 14 support centers. The total amount of funding provided by statute over 3 years, so this is considering the $80 million expected over 3 years, is $58,500,000 for formula grants. That's after admin fees. The applications were due on September 10th, and the committee approved all applicants, all 75, on October 1st. They have since submitted their budgets, which staff have reviewed and approved. and grant agreements for the Homelessness Prevention 3 formula grants have gone out. The agreements are due back on November 30th, and the Homelessness Prevention 3 formula grants start on December 1st. Most of the commissioners may remember that they adopted a timeline to get those grants out by December 1st because the authorizing statute required the commission to administer them, quote, as soon as practicable. The HP3 competitive grants are still going through their grant making process. There were 34 applicants for competitive funding. 29 of them were qualified legal services projects, and 5 of them were support centers. In total, the 34 applicants requested altogether $33,780,435. There's $19,500,000 available for the competitive awards. The average request, these are 3-year projects, the average request was about $990,000, so just shy of $1 million for 3 years. The committee, exercising its authority that the commission delegated to it, approved the RFP and scoring rubric on August 31st. The application deadline ended up being extended by 3 weeks to accommodate a stakeholder convening so that potential applicants could seek out partners for their proposals. So the deadline ended up being on October 22nd. The committee held what it calls a calibration session on October 29th, so 1 week later, where it selected a cross-section of proposals. It reviewed 5 proposals and then had a very robust discussion about how the scoring rubric would apply to those 5 proposals. And those 5 proposals were representative of the entire group, different regions of the state, different legal interventions, different sized organizations, et cetera. And the goal of that meeting was to advise the commission staff scoring team on how it should then score all 34 proposals. So the scoring team has one HP Funds committee member on it, and that's the chair, Jim, and 3 Office of Access and Inclusion staff members. The scoring team has since reviewed all 34 proposals. It will be meeting briefly with the HP Funds committee on Monday to get a little bit more guidance as to 3 proposals that it elevated to committee level review. And then it will be presenting its recommendations to the full committee, the scores and the funding amounts to the committee on December 2nd, so that the committee can then advance its recommendation for HP3 competitive funds to the full commission on December 13th. The only other thing I'll say to kind of close out is on December 2nd, the HP Funds Committee will also be handling any requests to revise budgets for the HP2, the second tranche of homeless prevention funding, which is about 1 year into those 3-year grants. They're 2021 through 2023 grants. Any that are requesting revision at or above 25% of the grant amount. The committee will discuss those, and the committee will be discussing potential changes to HP2 and HP3 reporting. And most of those changes, if not all of them, would be necessary changes to accommodate federal reporting requirements, since the HP3 grants are federally funded. And we want the HP2 reporting to mirror those as much as possible for consistency. So that's all I have. I don't know if Dwan, you want to add anything? Jim, if you want to add anything, but that's the staff report for HP2 and HP3.
Oh, Chris, it's very complete. Well done.
Thank you, Chris. I don't have anything to add.
Great. And then December 13th, there'll be a lot from the HP Funds Committee. So, all right, thank you, everybody.
Any comments or questions? Thanks, Chris. That was great. Okay, we are at partnership grants, and Crystal and Eric, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. So partnership grants, just to remind everybody, involve partnerships between the grantee and courts around the state to run various self-help projects, clinics typically, where litigants come in and just get advice from representatives typically of the grantee. And they involve things like unlawful detainer, consumer rights, domestic violence issues, and things like that. So the committee has been hard at work, and we really have just a couple of things to bring before you today, as to which we need your approval. One, Christine is going to be going over with you requests for carryover, similar to what you kind of heard already with the Eligibility and Budget Committee, but requests to carry over monies that were allocated and expected to be spent this year in 2021. So we have some carryover requests and some budget revision requests that Christina is going to go over. And then I will briefly talk about changes to the rubric that we intend to apply to the next grant cycle. That's for the year 2023, which we will be looking at in 2022. So we're kind of jumping years here. Carryover requests for 2021. Earlier this year, we approved grants for 2022, which will be funded starting next year. But we applied a rubric to that, which we've already implemented, but we're recommending some minor changes to the rubric for 2023, and we're going to ask your approval for that. We'll just go over that briefly. So that's the introduction, and then let's go ahead and roll with it. I think we have a PowerPoint.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So welcome, everyone. Just a quick introduction. I'm Crystal Bending, Senior Program Analyst with the Office of Access and Inclusion. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'll be shifting various documents just for the commission to see. So apologies for not having the full slideshow view. So the first item I'll talk about is item 8A, the 2021 Partnership Grant Budget Revisions and Carryover Requests. I think Erica Connolly gave a really great overview as to that process, and the same is similar for partnership grants. Under 10 are self-executing and approved administratively. 10 to 25 staff has authority, and then the over 25% requests are the ones that we'll be discussing in front of the commission today. All right, so the deadline to submit budget revisions and carryover requests was on October 29th, and the Partnership Grants Committee met on November 4th to discuss those requests above 25%. Here's just a breakdown of the requests received. 11 budget revision requests were received. 8 of those requests were below 25%, therefore not requiring committee action or commission action. And then 3 requests were above 25%. 8 carryover requests were received, 2 of which were below 25%, and then 6 requests were above 25%. There was an attachment to today's meeting agenda item, and I'll have this screen pulled up as well, just to go over that. But okay. So very similar to the requests made for IOLTA and EAF, the partnership grantees, we did receive several substantial carryover requests above 50%, and those are as follows: Community Legal Aid SoCal is at 40, Central California Legal Services had 2 requests at 100% carryover. Legal Assistance for Seniors had a request also at 100%, and the Neighborhood Legal Services had a request of 85% for both of their 2021 partnership grants. The staff recommendation, as well as the committee's recommendation for all of those carryover requests above 25%, with the exception of Community Legal Aid SoCal, was to not approve. Some considerations during the discussion was looking at the 2020 approved partnership grant carryover amounts, which are on this right-hand side of the table here, as well as consideration of the 2022 partnership grant awards that these grantees are in line to receive in January 1st, 2022. So we had a very similar discussion as the Eligibility and Budget Review Committee did have earlier today, and that's why the committee landed on the not approve recommendation for the 2021 request. Another consideration is that the Partnership Grant Committee will be administering a PG Partnership Grants 2.0 grant. And this will also provide an opportunity for some of these grantees who are requesting a carryover amount to proceed, seek additional funding and carry through some of these proposed plans, and be kind of on equal footing with the rest of the 2022 grantees who are eligible to apply for supplemental funding. So that's the carryover piece. As to the budget revisions, majority of them were under 25%, and 3 of those requests were above the 25% threshold. The committee staff recommendation was to approve all of the requests, just because they did not substantively change the project, and it's really within the inline budgets, proposed budgets from the 2021 year. So I'll stop this screen and I'll share the proposed motion on the screen.
Are there any questions though about what Christina's just reported?
Eric, with respect to not approving some of these carryovers, is it just for clarification purposes, would those funds come back to the commission?
Correct. Any unused funds from the 2021 grant year would be put actually to the partnership grant reserves for allocation. I believe it'll be 2023. So that would increase that pool of money.
Thank you.
So the proposed motion is on screen regarding the 2021 partnership grant budget revision and carryover requests.
I'll move. Christina.
Here a second.
I'll second.
Sorry, Eric, was that you who seconded?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll do roll call. Reines,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Vanarelli,
Yes.
Aglagi,
Yes.
Al-Saraf,
Yes.
Ball, Whitemaster, Luis.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. Bennett,
Yes.
Blakemore, Bashelli,
Yes.
Connolly,
Yes.
Friedman, Galkin, Iskin,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Meeker,
Yes.
Lantold.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Eric, I'll hand it over to you. Let me go ahead and present full screen from here.
I want to just kind of flip through these slides here.
Mhm.
Maybe the next one. So as those of you who've been on the commission for a while may recall, we have been applying to partnership grants a rubric that is a set of agreed upon dimensions by which we evaluate these projects. And the idea there is to improve transparency. And we approved a rubric, the commission approved a rubric that we applied to the partnership grant proposals for 2022. I forget if we also applied them for 2021, but we certainly applied them for 2022. And for 2023, and just to remind you of what the dimensions are, I'll just kind of show you briefly, but for 2023, we're proposing to use the same rubric with just a couple of changes to the definitions of some of the dimensions. So you can see that the rubric includes some basic eligibility requirements that you can read. I won't read them to you. We're not changing any of that. Then there are a bunch of what we call selection criteria, which again, you can read these. And those that are highlighted, and we evaluate each of these on kind of a three-pronged approach. Do they exceed expectations, meet expectations, or are they below expectations? We have definitions for all of those. We are not recommending a change in any of those. We're not recommending a change in any of these dimensions per se, but what we are recommending is just some changes in the way that we define them. So let's go on, and the ones that are highlighted in yellow have new definitions. And then the final piece of the Rubric is we have this funding priority where we privilege projects that are relatively new versus those that have been going on for a while. The expectation is that after 5 years, generally they should be self-funded, although we do make exceptions for rural areas. So we assign this funding priority. We're not recommending any changes there. And then we also look at innovation. You know, does the project offer any particular innovative way to approach the self-help clinics? We're not recommending any changes there. So let's look at the changes that we are recommending. And they are to the definition of these dimensions. One, project impact. We have a couple of them. We're showing you a couple on this slide. Project impact and administration. You can see the current definition under the 2022 column. And the proposal that we're bringing to you is to tweak the definition in all these cases by adding a little more detail. So you can see that the 22 definition for both of these is somewhat meaningful, but maybe a little bit spare. And what we've proposed is to augment the definition with both of these with a bit more detail. And again, you can read these. And I believe, Christina, did we get these revised definitions from the Rules Committee?
Yeah, so the proposed edits were in response to the Rules Committee's proposed recommendation to streamline the category definition. So Jim, Christina, I mean, these look very familiar because these are the proposed definitions up for commission review and approval in February, but we wanted to get started and start streamlining that for the 2023 grant year. So these are the same definitions as discussed on the Rules Committee level.
So let's assume you've had enough time to look at those. We can go back if you need more time, but let's flip to the next set of definitions that we're going to be changing. Yeah, so these two as well, continuity planning and evaluation. Again, you can see that we're proposing definitions that have a bit more detail. I don't think we're really changing the substance of any of this, but hopefully we're providing a bit more, that these additional words that we're layering on will provide at least somewhat more meaningful guidance to how we'll be looking at these dimensions. So these are the changes. We need the Commission's formal approval to input these into the 2023 rubric, and that's what we're asking for here today. So let me just pause for a minute and ask if there are any questions or comments about this proposal.
Jim?
Yeah, a couple of those categories are common to all our discretionary grants, like the administration and the evaluation. Are you suggesting that we should change these for all our discretionary grants to the proposed, or just the partnerships?
I don't think I'm necessarily suggesting anything other than my domain, which is partnership grants, but if people think that it would be appropriate to change them across the board, maybe, I guess I would defer to the Rules Committee and ask what the intention was there in these changes. Was it intended to be universal or just for partnership grants?
Elizabeth?
Wanted to respond to Jim. I think the Rules Committee has made recommendations about those definitions because they do cut across many different discretionary grants. And so that's just what the proposal today that Eric and Crystal just presented is to just align the definitions to what the Rules Committee has recommended. And as you know, the Rules Committee's recommendations will likely go to the full commission, I believe in next year. But you know, given that we had these more fleshed out definitions, we see the partnership committee thought it would be a good idea to move forward with them now.
Any other comments? Will?
I just wanted to add, and maybe this is more feedback for the Rules Committee, that one of the things I would really love to see more of is the incorporation of evaluations and the metrics in perhaps a more obvious way. Right now, it's clear from the definition that we are including historical performance and whether the goals are being met. But I think emphasizing that, and that we will be looking at what they submit and that will be integrated. Right now, it feels fuzzy, as if we say we're going to do it, but where that happens is less clear. So the more that can be clarified, how we integrate those metrics, I think the better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, so being new to the commission, I do appreciate the additional detail behind these definitions. I did work with Chris with the homelessness prevention to calibrate that rubric, and again, the additional detail I think is very helpful.
All right, we have a motion by Eric that's on the screen in front of you.
Second.
We have a second from Bob. Let's do a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. I was on mute. Rhinus,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Vanarelli,
Yes.
Oglagi,
Yes.
Al-Saraf, Ball, Whitemaster,
Yes.
Bennett, Pamela Bennett, are you still there? Blakemore, Bashelli,
Yes.
Connolly,
Yes.
Friedman, Galkin, Iskin,
Yes.
Cruz, Lee,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Meeker,
Yes.
Planto,
Yes.
motion passes.
So Rich, can I just say one thing briefly? Christina referred to a partnership 2.0. And I wanted to just explain to folks that before we even get to applying this 2023 rubric, which won't be until next spring and summer when we look at the proposals for 2023, the legislature has allocated an additional, I believe, something like $3.8 million for partnership grants for 2022. And to some extent, it goes into 2023 as well, this additional funding. So the committee is right now in the process of working through proposals for this additional 2022 funding. And we don't have time to get into all the details of that right now, but we will be coming back to the commission, I believe. Is that right, Christina? We will be coming back to the commission or Crystal, I'm sorry, I keep calling you Christina. I apologize for that. I'm losing my mind. Sorry about that. But anyway, we will be coming back to the commission for approval of the partnership 2.0 grants, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that will be early next year. Those grants will begin on April 1. And then we discussed that plan and the RFP and details at the last the August commission meeting.
Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
And Crystal, thanks for the great work that you've been doing on this committee, helping to steer us through all this work.
Thanks, Eric. I just wanted to highlight, I know we have agenda item 8C on there regarding the partnership grant evaluation updates that will actually be addressed at the December meeting. We do have other evaluation updates, so we're going to ball them up and package them and present them to the commission at its next meeting. Thank you.
All right, so you can see the next meeting is not going to be a 2-hour meeting. We expect, given the issue that we beat around for an hour, to come back and haunt us at that meeting. So please calendar it for longer than 2 hours. All right, so we're coming to a close, the liaison reports, and Bonnie and Selena, are you still with us? And if so, would you like to make a report? Start with Bonnie.
Hi, this is Melanie. Bonnie had to jump off, and I am not aware. Oh wait, I see her. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Melanie.
I was going to cover for you.
Good, thank you. Please
just
do.
to say that I'm not aware of anything additionally that we wanted to alert anybody about.
Okay, Selena.
I think pretty much everyone knows what we've been up to. We've been advocating for more funding for legal services. And then especially in California, when we advocate for funding through other agencies, we then have to do follow-up to educate them about reporting, because many of them, if they are granting to legal services for the first time, they don't understand the data collection that all of you do. But we are working with some agencies now with the hopes of, and this is Lauren's project, with the hopes of getting more funding out for housing assistance. And that's in partnership with the California Commission on Access to Justice. But other than that, we've just been continuing to convene people. We're doing a lot of trainings, moving everything to online, and hopefully we'll be back in person next year.
Thank you. Donna, I know you're still with us. Anything from you? Would you like to have the mic here at the end?
So rare that I turned down that opportunity for a mic, but I am shockingly going to do that today, Rich.
Okay, you can get a rain check.
Thank you.
Dwan.
Yeah, I just want to, the December 13th commission meeting, it was scheduled, it's currently scheduled for 9 to 11. It's supposed to be so that you all can approve the homelessness prevention competitive grants. But in light of today's meeting that we're going to be continuing some substantive discussions, I may suggest having scheduling for 4 hours. I don't think we'll need it, but it would be the last meeting of the year, and we really need some things approved, or else we won't be able to get out grant agreements. And so my suggestion is the calendar for 4 hours, and hopefully we will only need between 2 and 3.
Yes, and let's keep that in mind as it relates to the amount of time we can allocate to the other issue with respect to Lisnick. And in order to do that efficiently, I hope everyone will get a chance to look at the materials that we have before us so that they can be informed. And if Brady, I don't see Brady's face on my screen, but Brady said he could give us a 3-bullet point memo on authority. And I think it would be useful for everyone to keep in mind what our obligation is statutorily and what our authority is as so limited, so that you can use that as a framework within which to understand the materials as they get distributed to you, and we'll be ready to pick this ball up and run with it on December 13th. Will's got his hand up for final comments. I'm soliciting those. It's 3:25. We're still a bit early, but if we can get out of here, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. So Will and then Banafshe.
Two quick questions. One, and maybe this is obvious, but I don't want to assume, do we need a motion to have the executive committee and staff informally contact Lisnick, or is that just going to happen? Is it cool? We don't need to motion for that?
We don't need a motion, but we staff will confer with Rich and Kim.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we followed up, because it sounded like they've been on the hook here for a long time.
Oh, there's been a lot, Will. There's been a tremendous amount of communication back and forth. It hasn't only been one way.
I figured. I just didn't want to make an assumption here and then leave it hanging. And then my other question was, who should I follow up with on the question I had on the rules committee?
I will follow up with you. Yes, I will follow
Brilliant.
up with that. Fine. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. And again, excellent work on the 200%.
And Rich, we had one vote. I'm sorry to interrupt. There was one substantive vote left.
We have our budgets that we need to approve.
That's actually what what my hand was up for.
But
is
I'm
that,
saying that.
Yeah, Rich, is that to make sure if everyone's had an opportunity to review the document that was circulated by Dwan, and for us to go into that vote.
So this would be agenda item, 6B, I believe.
Yes.
Right.
6B.
Move to approve the draft budget as presented in item 6B.
And I'll second that.
Banafshe second. Roll call.
Reines,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Venarelli,
Yes.
Aglagi,
Yes.
Al-Saraf, Ball, Fightmaster, Luis. Oh, I think you're on mute, Luis.
Yes.
Thank you. Bennett,
Yes.
Blakemore, Boschelli,
Yes.
Connolly,
Yes, but I recuse as to CLUSPA.
Thank you. Friedman, Galkin, Iskin.
Suddenly everyone
Yes.
remembers.
Recuse as to Bate Sedek if we're taking recusals now.
Thank you.
Are we? Are we taking
Yes.
recusals?
Yes.
Okay. I'll after you're done, I'll come back.
Okay.
And recuse. Sorry.
I need to come back too.
Iskin, sorry, I'm.
So mine was yes, recuse as to
Okay.
Bate Sedek.
Great. Cruz,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes, but I need to note a few recusals. And I'm sorry for so many, but there are other clients, pro bono clients, or I'm on the board. So Bet Sedek Legal Services, Center for Gender and Refugee Studies, Disability Rights California, Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, Disability Rights Legal Center, and Public Counsel.
thank you, Joseph. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes, but recusing as to Disability Rights California and LACPA.
okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Meeker,
Yes, recuse as to Public Law Center.
thank you. Plantold,
Yes, recuse as to Bay Area Legal Aid.
thank you. And Chris, do you want me to go back so you can note a recusal?
Yes, please. Impact Fund, EBCLC, Legal Aid at Work, and is it East Palo Alto, Community Legal Services in East Palo Alto.
Okay, great, thank you. And Luis,
Yeah, I need to recuse on Law Foundation of Silicon Valley and Legal Aid Sonoma County.
great, thank you. Are there any other recusals? Motion passes.
All right, I appreciate everyone taking the time to do that and being reminded by Banafshe that I'd overlooked that. I really, it's late in the day for me, I guess. I don't know.
We're a team, Rich. We're a
That's
team.
right.
There's actually one pending question that Eric has asked a couple times in the chat. If we want to review that, he's asking, are there any thoughts about in-person meetings in 2022?
And we had a discussion about that, and I'd very much like to do that. We used to have all these meetings in person. Obviously, Zoom has changed things perhaps permanently, and it is a great deal easier for folks to communicate this way in some respects, but it doesn't create the collegiality that in-person meetings sort of created. With
This
that
is Bob.
said,
I wanted to butt in. You know, we've heard from some of our commissioners the great difficulties in traveling from their home place or their home work area to San Francisco or LA. I want to suggest we adopt what's been called a hybrid approach, where there can be in-person attendance by many of us, but some with no restrictions or characteristics or criteria. Some can be allowed to, if you will, participate remotely from X or Y or Z courthouse or some other public venue. I just want to bring it out now because, again, I don't know where some of the new people are cited and or where they might be practicing in court on a certain date when we've got a meeting. That let's try to make the option of hybrid available during the time when COVID allows us to come up with these alternatives, please.
thanks, Bob. Kim? Mute.
The executive committee has discussed trying to, early in the year, we would revisit the subject of meeting. And we have also discussed what you've raised, Bob, which is having a kind of hybrid situation for those who are able and comfortable coming in person, they would do so. Otherwise, we would do the video. But I think we feel like it's too early. We're interested in it, but it's a little too early to say, and certainly revisit it and would like to do so.
Banafshe.
On that note, if there is going to be a hybrid approach potentially in for 2022, I think this is a question for Brady and Donna and team. What does this mean in terms of Bagley Keene and notifying of our locations? Because some of us are obviously working from home and wouldn't want to have our home addresses publicly available.
Yeah, so that's actually why I had my hand up, Bonifay. And then I took it down after Kim's comment because I thought, okay, we can address that later. But right now, the executive order that the governor put in place that allowed us to do these kinds of remote proceedings and not publicize the locations, that executive order was extended by legislation that expires January 30th. I'm assuming that the reason for that January 30th date is because we're in the middle of a 2-year session for the legislature, and there are a variety of pieces of legislation that get enacted in January. There's a January deadline for sort of moving some legislation. So I suspect the legislature was interested in seeing what was going on before deciding if they were going to extend that date any further. So absent an extension of that, a Zoom meeting is considered a conference call, and so we could continue to have Zoom meetings, but we would need to notice locations if we were to do that. So we're keeping our eye on the Bagley Keene requirements, and we'll keep you informed about any of that. Assuming we will continue to have hybrid, just one point that I wanted to make is we have been able to convert conference rooms in the Los Angeles building of the State Bar into what are called Zoom rooms. So it's really easy to integrate a group of in-person with a group who are remote. However, there would be significant cost to do that kind of integration in San Francisco. So at this time, I don't believe the State Bar will be investing in that for San Francisco. So if we're going to do a hybrid meeting, the in-person part would be in Los Angeles.
And I assume the executive order is not with reference to meetings scheduled prior to January 30th, but meetings that occur prior to January 30th.
Yes, so I love the creative thinking.
Thank you. Okay, any other final comments?
Well, actually, just for clarifying, so if we did a hybrid meeting, Donna, the in-person part of the hybrid would be meeting in Los Angeles because of the Zoom technical issues. So those of us in Northern California would be traveling to Southern California for in-person. Yes.
Yeah, and obviously we will, as the next couple of months, we'll confirm, if there may be, sort of depending on how many people, we may be able to accommodate a small number in San Francisco, but sort of our big, like the board meeting rooms have not been converted to Zoom rooms because the technology is different there. So I will keep abreast with our IT team and let you know as part of the decision-making that Kim referred to.
Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, years ago, didn't we have access to technical assistance from a private law firm in San Francisco that permitted us to use their conference room and their tech capabilities?
Yeah, so as I recall, when David Lash was, I think it was LA, when David Lash was on the commission, his law firm provided some space.
That's right, with O'Malveny. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, this is Joe Lee. Well, David Lash's shoes are awfully hard to fill, but I think Munger Tolles has a San Francisco and an LA office, and we often have video hookups between the two. So I'd be happy to look into whether we could have a group. We could have a group in our LA office and another group in San Francisco, or alternatively, our San Francisco office and an outside location. I think the latter is a little harder than everybody at a Munger Tolles facility. I don't know if we're violating any rules by doing that, but if Lash did it, I would guess Munger Tolles could do it. And I'm happy to look into that.
Joe, he did it before Bagley Keene. And that's a very generous offer, and I'd love to look into that. Bob, we'll get to you, Dwan, and then Diana.
Yeah, I just want to make a note on the 2022 meeting schedule. Historically, the committee meetings have preceded a commission meeting, so it'd be easier for you to go to the State Bar office and then have 2 back-to-back meetings. We've heard that a 6-hour Zoom meeting, 2 back-to-back meetings is just too much. So for 2022, we intentionally decoupled the committee and commission meetings. So I just want to make note of that in case at some point we do go back to in-person. It's designed now for it to be separate.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
I appreciate the possibility of offers of free meeting sites and or communications facilities. I guess I'm going to put on my hat as a former ethics commissioner in San Francisco. Could we be opening ourselves to a problem? What if the host law firm had as a client one of the applicant grantees in any litigation or in any appeals complaints to us? I think we got to be very careful about accepting donations from outside entities, which might eventually have a professional relationship to some applicant grantee to or from us. I'm not saying no, it's just like, I can see pitfalls and landmines.
Thank you, Bob. We'll have to take that up with Brady. We'll let you know. People are anxious to get going.
I know.
Getting going. So I
I'll move to
will
adjourn.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll
So
move
we
to
won't lose-
adjourn. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I don't think we have to take a roll call on that, Dawn, do we?
By acclamation.
By
By
acclamation.
rising vote. Parliamentary procedure by rising vote acclamation. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. This has been a long meeting, but a very good one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Rich. That was a great job there. Hope you
you.
enjoyed
Happy
it.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes. Happy
Totally.
Thanksgiving,
Happy
everyone.
Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye, everybody.